that's a really good point there. So you kind of, to me, it seems like you're actually aligning with me.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of align with you, Minar, in this
Oh.
sense. Isaac is in the right.
Okay.
This is a
No,
whole
the government
tradition
body is
that's
not
going
binding.
on.
Who enforces that? You can't punch someone behind closed doors.
Native American land being taken
Whoa,
was
whoa,
that.
whoa, whoa, whoa!
But
Don't.
Hamas, okay, but Hamas, he's forced into do that. He's sitting in his home, and then his mom died. And
Oh,
now
I'm
he has
sorry.
no
Was
money,
October
he
7th
has no
forced by
food.
hand?
He has no food, and they train him. Yeah, so what?
I'm sorry, Mom. They strapped me to a paraglider and threw me to a festival. I had to kill those civilians. What do you mean it was forced?
Yeah, but when you look into the future, you can see that
That's
there was
hindsight.
wrong.
You
So
can't do that,
see
though.
it
You
was wrong.
can't do that. You can't look into the future. That's a really bad thing to do.
So right, that's why. So that's how you can justify the IDF to do whatever they're doing today, because you don't want to look into the future of what it's gonna do.
No,
or
you
into
just
the
you
past.
understand that you can't look into the future, though, right?
The
I'll wait to see it.
proportionality, it turns out, was on my side. It would
Okay, wait. It never was. Wait, hey, Blur. Was he right when it came to the legality of proportionality?
The legality of it, no.
Of course not. Okay, thank you. Okay, you asked for legal standing, and I gave you legal standing, and now you're throwing it out. Do you understand you are doing a perfect example of what hand waving is?
This
You're
is
asking-
amazing. So what you're gonna do is you're trying to say that America and Israel don't believe that that Gaza belongs to Palestinians, so now that they can take it.
Okay, Blur, was that just a complete straw man of what I said? Wait, Blur, was that just a complete straw man of what I've stated?
Minar, where are you trying to go with that?
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah, that had no
What I'm
connection to what I've
trying
been
to say
saying.
is-
It's construed his points a few times. Like, how many times would you say I have? How many times have I straw manned him when I bring up his side?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard it.
Okay, how many times is he?
I think, okay, in the stream, I think he's done it twice. and
Twice?
right-
Do you think America was the only person building a nuke at the time? Do you think? And
at the
to-
time,
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to the
No, it
discussion.
does. Because if you're not the
That
first to
doesn't-
use it, you're gonna be the last. Okay. Okay. So Blur, if Russia took Kiev today, who owns Kiev?
fuck you.
They're finding legalities, and then you just move on to the next one, and you keep
I
going
know,
on,
but
and the
no,
UN keeps going with you.
Minar, but that's why I said fuck you to him, because like he got
I
me.
was right.
It's the thing. What happened?
I said, was I right when it came to the legality of this argument?
Legality, how it is today, yes.
Okay.
but-
Hey.
Do you think Resolution 181 is binding, Minar?
Which resolution?
UN Resolution 181, the partition plan. Do you think that's binding?
No, I know the resolution 181 was not. No, I'm talking about the
Yeah, it's
47th
not.
partition.
Resolution 181 is the
Jesus
It was a legal
Christ.
binding partition.
Oh.
Okay, wait. It is. You're arguing
Hold on.
something
Wait,
else,
wait.
that means
Do you
you're
think-
arguing
Hold on,
something else.
Minar, actually, do answer that.
Do you think I
believe-
think that? Do you think that I think there's discrimination going on? Yes or no?
Yeah. Believe that?
Do you believe there's discrimination? No, because you said there's no illegal occupation. You said there's a belligerent occupation. I don't believe
Okay.
you even think there's a discrimination. I think you believe that they govern themselves, and so they
Yeah.
deserve what
Here's
they're
the
doing
problem.
because
Do you
they
think I
have
believe
the right
that?
governing
You
authority
asked me
over
that,
them.
and I said I don't think that. If you ask someone a question and they say I don't think that, why do you walk away thinking they think that? That's
Trying to buy a company, okay?
Okay.
And I literally finance other people saying like, hey, I'm gonna give you this money. You sell me your stock so I can be the majority holder of this company.
you understand what you just
This-
described as a takeover, right? And that's what happens today.
well,
You understand
like I
that? That's legal,
corruption.
and
Talking
that's
about
completely legal. What you just described, though.
Corrupt.
What year was the Suez Crisis? Just so we know what we're talking about.
Which crisis?
The Suez.
The who?
That's
The
crazy.
Suez?
Oh my
There we
The
go.
Suez? That's around the same time with the Balfour, right?
Wait, nope,
No.
about 30 years in between that.
I can
Who
show-
do
I
you
can show you.
who do you think legally owned the land in 47?
I believe it was Palestinian because they were the first ones to be there, and they had been able to show and prove that they had ancestry in that area.
Haven't the Jews
Whereas
as well?
the Jews never were able to show that ever.
Really, the Jews were never able to show history to
Never,
Israel.
never able. Tell me, they start talking about Ashkenazi Jews, and this is their homeland. Complete bullshit. Have nothing. No, they're totally two different denominations of Jews.
Here's my question though: was Jesus Jewish?
Okay, illegally occupying. I won the debate. Thank you. You have no answers. Keep making fun of me. Go ahead. Try.
True,
You have
so
no answer.
right.
You cannot actually talk with this. You have to go
Okay.
to this different example.
This is very easy to.
I'm actually speaking so clear. You have to go.
True. Let's do a word
Talk to
count
me-
real
talk
quick.
to me clear. You cannot speak clearly at all. 47, 48, they declined. Okay, let's say the Palestinians declined. I'll go with you.
They did.
declined.
Okay.
But also the Israelis declined because what
They-
happened was they immediately started the
didn't-
war and took
They
over
just
more
declined. They
territory.
accepted it.
Why are you laughing? Why are
'Cause
you
they
laughing? How
accepted
did they
it.
accept
Because
that?
you're
How did they
just
accept
wrong,
this?
design
Because when the- wait, okay, so the way-
Design
the way-
authority literally
How can
accepted
they
it.
accept this agreement if at 55% and they're if it's supposed to be at 55 but they went to 75 and 85? What do you mean?
Boy,
they
can you
accept
tap in?
this
There's a
agreement?
disconnect going on that needs to be
What kind of
settled, and it's very
acceptance
obvious.
is this? Where do you accept? Is this an American acceptance where we just fuck you in the ass and tell you, yeah, you're supposed to love it and consent to it? What the
Whoa.
fuck is this, man?
Whoa.
So you tell me I didn't consent to the 55% partition, so you have the legal right to take away 78% of my land? Are you stupid?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the question again. I'm gonna
you
ask the
just
question
fucking-
again. I'm gonna ask the question again. I know questions are hard,
No,
man.
don't ask questions. Talk to me. I'm out of this. All right. Hey guys, thanks so much for this debate. Isaac, appreciate you. Today we're going to discuss. Okay, let me fix my push to talk. Give me a
No problem.
It's going to be annoying to push this for 10 minutes. All right, guys, thanks so much again. Appreciate you for inviting me. Isaac, you're the man. Today we're going to talk about, is Israel an apartheid? The question of whether Israel qualifies as an apartheid state is a deeply polarizing issue, often evoking passionate debates and different viewpoints. Hopefully today, me and Isaac will reach to a point of agreement based on the facts whether Israel is the last apartheid state in the world. As we are speaking today, 1.5 million Arab Palestinians that live in Gaza have been displaced and are forced to move south, leaving all their belongings or risk death. Also, as we are speaking, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is hearing a case brought by South Africa, our other example of modern apartheid, convening on the Genocide Convention, claiming that Israel is committing genocide on the Palestinian people, and with the country's 84-page application, it alleged that Israel's actions are, quote, genocidal in character because they are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian national, racial, and ethnical group. While supporters of Israel argue that it is a democratic state with equal rights for all citizens, the Palestinians and critics assert that its laws and institutions systematically discriminate against Palestinians, rendering it an apartheid regime akin to the former South African apartheid system. Apartheid is defined by the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid. Is defined by the International Convention as the suppression and punishment of the crime of apartheid defines the crime. Okay, wait. The International Convention of Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid defines the crime of apartheid as inhuman acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. Today, I will prove to you by simply expanding their definition to include ethnic or religious identities that apartheid applies to Gaza and the West Bank today. One of the fundamental pillars of apartheid is the segregation and differential treatment of distinct racial or ethnic groups within a society. In Israel, this segregation is evident in various legal and institutional frameworks. Firstly, Israel's citizenship laws inherently privilege Jewish individuals over non-Jewish citizens. The law of return grants Jews from anywhere in the world the right to immigrate to Israel and gain citizenship. This right is called Ole, and everyone in Israel is very familiar with this extremely discriminatory law based on your religious and ethnic identity. In the official law documents, all you need to become an Israeli is 1, be a Jew, 2, wanting to return to your homeland, and thirdly, after a quick social media confirmation that you are not bad towards Israel or the Jews, then you are granted the right to become Israeli citizen with all applied rights that come with it. And you become an Ole. Even if you were an Uber driver living in New York City last year, while Palestinians, including those who were displaced during the 1948 Israeli-Arab War, are denied this same right. They are classified as third-class citizens as people who live in Jerusalem get a little bit more rights than the Arabs that live in Gaza and the West Bank. So they're not second-class citizens, they're third-class citizens, and this creates a clear distinction in the treatment of Jewish and non-Jewish individuals within Israel's borders. Second, Israel's legal system in the occupied Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza Strip is a focal point of contention. Palestinians living in these areas are subject to military law, while Israeli settlers residing in the same territory are governed by civilian law. This dual legal system leads to vastly different rights and treatment of Jewish settlers and Palestinian residents, with Palestinians often facing harsher treatment, arbitrary detention, and limited legal recourse. And we'll touch on that in a bit. Third, it's long been argued that Israel's control over the Palestinian population's movement and access to resources mirrors the oppressive nature of apartheid. The construction of separation barriers, checkpoints, and restricted roads in the West Bank severely limit Palestinians' mobility. You live in constant surveillance and checkpoints, while the Jewish settlers down the street enjoy unrestricted movement with a reduced need for checkpoints, even though their settlement is just a couple miles away from the Palestinian checkpoints. Furthermore, Israelis' policies of land confiscation, settlement expansion, and home demolitions disproportionately impact Palestinian communities, exacerbating their socioeconomic marginalization. Basically, Israel military IDF have full control over mobility of Gaza and the West Bank citizens, while settlers in the same territory are free to roam, even holding weapons with no problems, even that same zone. Furthermore, there's no legal recognition of interfaith marriage in Israel. This is a big point reminiscent of South African Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act. Act number 55 of 1949 was an apartheid-era law in South Africa that prohibited marriages between whites and non-whites. It was among the first pieces of apartheid legislation to be passed following the National Party's rise to the power in 1948. Subsequent legislation, especially the Population Registration and Immorality Act of 1950, facilitated its implementation by requiring all individuals living in South Africa to register as a member of one of four officially defined racial groups and prohibiting extramarital sexual relationships. Very reminiscent of Gaza's social system, and them being deemed as second or third class citizens based on the zones of where they lived or based on their identification. As well as defined by racial groups and prohibited extramarital sexual relations between those classified as white on the one hand and those classified as non-white, blacks, coloreds, later also Asians, on the other hand. It did not criminalize sexual relationships between those classified as non-Europeans. Looking at this law closer, it's apparent to mirror the laws of the books of Israel, as for example, under the Citizenship and Entry into Israel law, the right of a spouse of an Israeli citizen to automatic Israeli citizenship is dependent on the country or territory of the spouse. It is not automatic for West Bank residents or citizens of certain Muslim majority countries. So not only does the country not recognize interfaith marriage, but also when it does recognize, it makes life very difficult for those that are married but live in different zones within that region. If you want to argue that there are some Arabs that enjoy living in Israel and believe that will be an argument that could defeat my point of apartheid, then I want you to remember that one, a preponderance of Arabs living in East Jerusalem identify as Palestinian and are not citizens of any country. Most Arabs there declined Israel's offer for citizenship after the 1967 Six-Day War and were instead given permanent resident status. Today, about 360,000 Palestinians in East Jerusalem hold that status. Permanent residency does grant them many rights, same as Israeli citizenship, but they also are excluded from certain rights. For example, they give them the rights of including the ability to live, work, and travel freely within Israel, as well as access to health insurance and social services. However, they do not get the Israeli passport, so they're kind of stuck and cannot vote in any national elections. They can also lose their residency status and be deported by the Israeli government if it determines that East Jerusalem is no longer their primary residency or residence, or that they are family or one of their family members engaged in anti-Israel or terrorist activities. Likewise, as of February 2023, Israel can deport and revoke the citizenship of Arabs who are convicted of terrorism and receive financial aid from the Palestinian Authority. Since 1967, more than 14,000 East Jerusalem Palestinians have had their residency revoked, according to a compilation of data from several government agencies by Israeli human rights organizations. Some international and Palestinian rights groups argue that the revocations count as forcible transfers, which are illegal under international law. So you're right; they do get some certain rights, but they don't have a passport. They don't belong to any other country except the territory they're living in. But they are subject to be removed at any point in time based on the laws if they change, or based on their actions and their habits and how the authorities interpret their actions. Maybe they interpret them as terroristic actions, so they're going to kick them out of the country. So the institutionalization of discrimination is also apparent in Israel's allocation of resources and services, even for Arab Israelis, as statistics from IDI show that Arab citizens of Israel continue to face structural disadvantages. For example, poorly funded schools in their localities contribute to their attaining lower levels of education and their reduced employment prospects. And their earning power compared to Israeli Jews is much lower. More than half of the country's Arab families were considered poor in 2020, compared to only 40% of the Jewish families. Socioeconomic disparities between Israel's Jewish and Arab citizens are less pronounced in mixed cities, though a government audit in July 2022 found that Arabs had less access to municipal services in those cities. So Palestinian citizens of Israel, who make up about 20% of the population, face systemic inequalities in access to education, healthcare, housing, and employment opportunities compared to their Jewish counterparts. Discriminatory planning and zoning policies often result in the neglect and underdevelopment of these Palestinian towns and villages, perpetuating socioeconomic disparities along ethnic lines. So let's not forget that Israel's nation state law passed in 2018 enshrines the country as the nation state of the Jewish people, effectively relegating the rights of non-Jewish citizens, including Palestinians, to secondary status. This law has been widely criticized for institutionalizing Jewish supremacy and further marginalizing the Palestinian minority within Israel. So in conclusion, while supporters of Israel vehemently reject the characterization of the country as an apartheid state, a critical examination of its laws, institutions reveals a reality where systemic discrimination against Palestinian Arabs exists, from unequal citizenships, rights to discriminatory legal frameworks and resource allocation. Israelis' policies and practices perpetuate segregation and oppression reminiscent of apartheid. Addressing these structural inequalities and moving towards a system based on equality and justice for all remains a formidable challenge for Israel as it seeks to reconcile its democratic ideals with its treatment of the Palestinian population.
Okay. Am I good? Is my audio good for you?
Yep, it's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I feel like when we talk about apartheid, it typically refers to the racial segregation that happened in South Africa prior to the 1990s. It was a discriminatory system where the white minority controlled and oppressed the majority of the population, which was made up of non-white groups. Labeling Israel as practicing an apartheid is kind of a misrepresentation of it, or at least I see that as, and I think by the end of this you'll see it as to it. While Israel faces societal challenges like, biasy discrimination and, you can make the case of racism in their laws, a lot of countries have the same problem. I don't agree that that's, justification for it, but there's a reason that those aren't considered it, and this one is being targeted. It's just from what's going on today. Okay, sorry, lost my place. Okay, the problem is whenever you label them as an apartheid, it questions the legitimacy of the only Jewish state. Israel has measures in place to ensure equal treatment of all of its citizens, regardless of their ethnicity. Israeli Arabs hold various positions and prominent roles in society, and an Arab political party is a part of the governing coalition. Policies in the West Bank and Gaza are still being negotiated as of today by Israelis and Palestinians. While there are restrictions that impact Palestinians, they are often justified by security concerns due to the threat from terrorist organizations. While Israel's actions are bad, and I think the way they handle themselves today in war could be criticized, and it should be, that does not constitute a permanent labeling of apartheid. But what is the definition of apartheid? The International Convention, actually I'll just cut this, you already said it. TLDR, inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group over another by systematically oppressing them. So what are we looking for here? There's two important parts that was just labeled. Systematic oppression and the intention of maintaining a domination of a racial group. You said you want to extend it to ethnic and religious. I'll even grant you that. Systematic oppression of a racial, ethnic, or religious group. Okay? Sorry. I feel like that the threat Hamas and other groups have shown throughout time have justified that fear. I'm not here to say that Israel is acting right in this war, but we're here to talk about apartheid. There's a reason that this is not just defined as systematic oppression, and that is dolus specialis, is the important part about this entire case. It is the genocidal intent that has to be behind it. I feel like when you compare what does a country that has been attacked throughout its history have justification for feeling unsafe against a military group that has the goal of removing them and murdering civilians and hiding behind civilians using the gaze of perfidy or whatever it is to use civilians and to cause hesitation in Israel. I feel like that when you label that and you see all of that's there, how is the more obvious answer that Israel wants to remove all of Palestinian people and that's what their goal has been this entire time? I feel like the way more obvious answer is the one of security, and I feel like the burden is on you to prove that. I feel as if we wrap up though, I feel like that word is just used, the apartheid word, it's just used to condemn Israel without actually knowing the full weight that it carries. There's a saying in law school where if you have the facts on your side, you pound the facts. If you have the law on your side, you pound the law. If you have neither, you pound the table. And I feel like that's all we see. The ICJ didn't end up ruling that it was a genocide. It didn't end up calling for a ceasefire. The law left it, okay, so now let's move to the facts. I feel like when you even look at the facts, that doesn't show it either. But I think we'll get into that, so I'm not going to point out some you already have. We'll go into that later. But to actually finish, I have a quote from Justice Richard Goldstone from the Goldstone Report, a former senior South African jurist and critic of Israel's policies, who said, "Those who conflate the situation in Israel and the West Bank are likened both to the old South Africa, do a disservice to all those who hope for justice and peace."
All right, sweet.
Do you want me to ask my first question to you, or do you want to? You have a way you want to take
I
this?
want to respond to you. I want to be the first one to ask.
Gotcha.
So you said a lot of countries are discriminatory. I want you to give me an example. Give me an example of a country that's discriminatory like Israel?
So
Its
you could
laws.
look at America. You can really look at any country that, especially when you look at where there's more heavily territory claims, right? When you look at war, there are gonna be. I don't think if a Russian person walked into Poland right now, they're probably not gonna be treated the best, and that is wrong. But there is a security justification behind it. That's what I'm basically claiming when I say that. I'm saying that
Okay,
while there
so
is.
I see. This is the problem that I actually agree with you. I agree with you that every country in the world has to give preferential treatment to its citizens. I agree with you because it has certain resources, national resources, and should divvy up the profits from these resources to its citizens. So their citizens should be able to gain from the prosperity of the nation. So I do agree with you. So just because we see people are growing and doing really good and prospering doesn't mean that there's discrimination. My only contention is that we're forgetting that it's discriminatory not only because the Israelis are prospering, but because there are laws to stop the Palestinians from prospering themselves. The no right to return for any Arab that lives in Gaza. For example, even if he was found to be legally living in Gaza and has the status of Palestinian, once he leaves the country, he has no right to return, and he might not even he has no permits, he has no legal documentation to prove that this belongs to him, and so he doesn't have any rights that he can get back. Whereas, for example, for the Israeli citizen, a person that's never visited the territory, never lived in the area ever, he has full rights, full access to everything that's accessible to an Israeli citizen. All those natural resources gains, all those prosperity, just because he's a Jew that loves to be Jewish and loves the Jews and believes that Israel is his hometown. So this is the contention. So I agree with you. We should help citizens should prosper in a country, but how do you reconcile that they don't help those people that actually live in the country? Instead, try to push them out, and even when they do push them out, they found a legal loophole to never let them come back. Whereas they can allow in anybody else that doesn't even belong in the region, never was born, like an Ashkenazi Jew from Europe that has no relation to Jacob or any of those Abrahamic prophets. How do you reconcile that? Like, how can you say that guy belongs to Israel, but the Palestinian that's lived there for 100 years or 150 years should move out? Or belongs to that different country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. I don't know about as far as move out, but whenever it comes to the right of return, I think the biggest problem is who does have, like, where you draw that line is the biggest contention here, right? So when it boils down to it is, do you think a country has the right to determine who comes into its country? I think everyone would say yes, right? You have the right to say who can and can't come in.
Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah, I agree with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when you look at that, you notice that maybe there is a good reason, right? Maybe there isn't in Israel's case, but throughout time there are good reasons for the, choosing who comes in and comes out. And the problem is, you are right. There probably are a lot of Palestinian people who deserve the right to return. But the reason they're not getting that right to return is because on the Palestinian side, when they go to negotiations, I'm probably wrong on my peace negotiation, but I think it was during the Oslo Accords, there was a talk of it was a third generation Palestinian could have the right to return, which would mean if a Palestinian person went to America, had a kid, and that kid had a kid, that Palestinian would have the right to return. Do you think that's like right in that situation?
So you have to move out of the country for 2 generations, basically.
It-
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I actually read anything about this before. I
This
actually don't believe that's true.
is one of them. I could look it up, but it was one.
Do they actually have a right to return? But they
That
have to
was one of
wait 2 generations?
No, it
I
wasn't that
actually,
it wasn't that they had to wait 2 generations. It was that as far as 2 generation goes, they had the right to return. So if you were a second generation Palestinian who never even set foot on Israel or Palestine,
return
sorry,
to what?
to Israel or Palestine or whatever you want to determine it as, Gaza Strip, West Bank, right?
Yeah, no, I don't believe that that's true at all. I don't believe the Israeli government will ever allow them back in because they have to give them a portion of land which they will not. They will have to actually basically give a piece of Gaza to that new Palestinian, and they will never do that. So, so this is okay. So I think we're a little bit cut off. There's a wall between us. So let me try to make this make sense to you. So I'm an Israeli citizen, but I was living in New York City. Why do I have more rights than the Palestinian that lived in that country for 100 years? Or at least not even more rights. Why am I not equal in status? Like I just showed up to this country. Now I can work anywhere I want. I can buy any piece of land as long as I have money. I can settle anywhere. By the way, we didn't even talk about the law of settlements. You're forced to settle as an Israeli citizen, whereas the residents can never settle. They can never leave that occupied territory. So my question is, how can you say that those are 2 different countries when the same authority is the one that's ruling over both peoples? So the Gazan peoples are ruled by the Israeli government, and also the Israeli citizens ruled by the Israeli government. They're just so different in treatment, even though that guy just showed up 2 days ago, and this guy has been living here for 100 years.
So when you made that in that hypothetical, I agree the treatment is shitty, and that is a very morally wrong thing when you look at it, especially in that very niche hypothetical. Why the hypothetical probably does happen though, and it is a probably common thing that could happen. It is probably shitty. But again, we both agreed that a country should have the right to determine who can enter and who can leave, right? That is borders are one of the most important parts of security, as we know during this conflict, right? There's a reason that is it the green line? Like there's a reason that there's all of these like barriers that try to separate them, okay? And then I think
So
your
my
other
question
point,
is,
yeah, another point, one second.
go
You
ahead.
try. Okay, thank you. I was gonna say I want to get you had 2 points, so I wanted. And then you also said something about the governing authority. I do. The problem with this is we could go into this. This would be very niche and very. It just doesn't apply, right? Like you can say we could fight over who runs it, right? We could governing party, Fatah, Hamas, Israel.
Well, you're
I don't.
making
It
a
doesn't matter
claim.
too.
You're making a claim. I'm going to have to ask you to defend it. You're making a claim
True,
that Gaza
but
basically is its own country. So I want you to defend that.
I have never once made that claim though. I am just saying that whenever you look at apartheid, I feel like the security concern very clearly outweighs the intent of committing a racial majority. But we can move to that if you want to.
Who rules Gaza?
I mean, whoever you want to say. If you want to say it's the Palestinians, you want to say it's Israel. I'll give you it's Israel, okay? Because I know that's where you want to go with this.
Yeah, so if Israel rules Gaza, I think your contention point is a country can do whatever it wants to its people. I agreed with you. I agree with you.
Not
A
all of
country
that.
can
Yeah,
do
not all of that. But very for borders.
Yeah, but then I can argue that Israel has the responsibility to take care of the Palestinian people because they are the rulers of the Palestinian people.
While I would agree with you, again, I feel like we're getting a little off track here. I agree, right? And if I feel like we're gonna get to a good conversation after this, I could agree that they have that authority. So if we look at why they had done, how they done, then we can see what the intent was behind it. Because if you can show that there was a apartheid intent, like if it was to make a racial majority, then I would agree with you. But I don't think you can ever show that intent behind their actions. I think the more clear intent is of security. Of with the blockade, it was to make sure that their military
Okay, let's do that. I'll dabble. I'll give it to you. The security. How can you explain? Okay, let's do it. I'm gonna give you. This is gonna be an amazing argument for you. Okay, listen to this. This is all security, and I want you to answer this because even with security, you cannot justify what Israel is doing after October 7th. Look. So let's say Gaza is its own country, and Gaza has the military power, Hamas. Hamas believes that some of Israel belongs to it, so it wants to dabble and fight a war with Israel. And Israel is like, no, we want to secure our borders, so we're gonna fight back. So Hamas goes in, does the October 7, kills these people, takes hostages, and leaves. So now Israel wants to retaliate. Shouldn't they go after their bases, just like Hamas went after settler colonial villages and military bases? They didn't go after specifically civilians. They went after colonized territory, after contested territory. So, like, if this is a war zone, shouldn't you be going after the military personnel? Why are you going after the actual citizens of the land, killing 30,000 civilians?
So that comparison you made, I feel like just doesn't fit one to one at all. You just said shouldn't. So if Israel is attacking, because what you're saying here is that Hamas is only attacking military targets and just happens to hit civilians, but Israel isn't. One, there are no military targets for Israel to hit. Hamas does that intentionally. They hide behind that. There's a reason that a hospital was used as an interrogation room. There's a reason that all we see is them wearing civilian clothes. There's a reason that we see all of these things happening. And also, I don't think shooting bombs into cities is for military targets. And I think we've had this conversation before where I know you said that maybe they are trying to bomb military targets, but it's called dummy bombs where there's no navigation. They're just shooting into a general area and hoping it hits. And then dropping on a festival, while I agree there is some contention with the territory, isn't a military target. I think we could both agree on that.
So I agree with you. Maybe one of those positions was a festival, but even that festival turns out that most of the people that were in the festival, it was a festival for the military. It was a festival to relieve the military bases. Yeah, that's what I found out. It was, and even then, the actual Hamasi soldier believes he's fighting against the settler. He doesn't believe only the IDF is his enemy. He believes the settler is his enemy itself. So he, Hamasi, in trying to achieve security for his country, Gaza, went in and killed those settlers and killed the military personnel, and then whoever were citizens, they took them in as prisoners of war, as hostages. So my question is, if you're saying it's for the security of Israel, how can you not condemn, or how can you justify their acts? If Israel is justified to commit 30,000 atrocities because of 1,000 kills, how can you justify that? So how can you be mad at October 7 but be cool with 30,000 people killed? So what I'm trying to get to is, even if you believe it's security based, you cannot justify their actions post October 7, because even if I give it to you that Hamas was the warrior and it was a country fighting another country, you still have a law in the books for war. You have to go and fight their military personnel. You send in special ops. You reduce casualties when it comes to civilians as much as possible. I even talked to Non-Fan about this. There's I guess there's an amendment to some kind of bill, and it gives you a proportionality line. It lines up what proportionality looks like. And the proportionality laws, you're forced to send a special ops if there's one Hamasi and 10 citizens. You can't just bomb the building, but that's what they're doing. They're just bombing the building if there's one Hamasi and 10 civilians in it. So my question is, how can you justify that because of October 7th?
Okay, so I saw two things, or three claims in there. So the first claim that you made was that the Hamas person, that why they might be killing civilians, they do believe, or they are to believe, that that person is the IDF. I think you would agree with me that no matter what someone believes someone is doing, if someone doesn't actually have any malice behind them, they are innocent, right? I think that's how we justify innocence, is by without malice, okay? And then whenever you say something like how war is used in the books, I think that's a very interesting topic to go to, because when it comes to, war and the war crimes that are here, I think you can point to Hamas 20,000 more times than you can point to Israel, even with the proportionality difference there, okay? And then there is no requirement for spec ops on the book. There is no, like, if this is how it is, that's how you must do it. And when it comes to laws around war, you had one more. And when it comes to laws around war, it is very difficult for laws to be around a war when it comes to insurgent people, when it comes to people fighting from inside territory that is civilians. And when you say Israel has been doing things proportionality-wise, they have been. There's a reason that for the longest time, I don't know if it still is, but there's a reason. It was less than one civilian death per bomb dropped. There's a reason that they have a history of calling buildings and letting know they're going to be bombed if they are seen as a military target. They do door knocking. They have even... What was the one case where it was two IDF soldiers got killed because they knocked on a door to talk to a dude who they suspected? That's like the rings they go through, right? You understand that? You would agree with me that there are a lot of rings they go through when it comes to bombings.
Sure, the colonial state does draw up fires in our they bombed the building. I agree with you. But is that enough time for, and is that sufficient for you to evacuate the area in a civil and safe manner? I don't believe so. You're saying that they're actually not intending to hurt the civilians, but how do you say that at the same time you're dropping a bomb, 2,000-pound bomb, in the most densely populated area? How can you claim you don't want to, you want to reduce civilian casualties? Okay, let's go back to our argument of apartheid. So how is Israel not the apartheid, not an apartheid state if it has full legal illegal occupation of Gaza, has completely bordered Gaza. It can drop bombs on it anytime it wants. But you then tell me that's fine because they are trying to reduce the casualty, or it's not their intent to create casualties. How can you actually see that? Because a couple of guys knocked on a door and died. I can show you 100 cases where there's Palestinian kids, 11, man, as small as 6 years old, being arrested and put in jail, in prison for no charges except for throwing a stone at a tank. I can show you a lot of horrific crimes that the IDF commits on them. I get that you showed me that two IDF soldiers died. I can show you 7 kids that got shot in the balls, and they can never have kids again just because they were marching in the March of Return in 2014. There's so many cases that I can show you. So let's stay away from the actual anecdotal evidence. Let's do the actual big picture. The big picture is Israel has full authority over Gaza. It doesn't allow a single piece of equipment going through Gaza without its authorization. It illegally occupies the West Bank, Julan Heights, and Gaza currently. And every citizen that, they're not even called citizens, they're residents, they have to go and register with the Israeli government. All of this, you do not believe is basically a demonstration that Israel is the authority over everyone in that region. I'm telling you, that's actually the proof that they are the authority, because how else are you going to be the authority? If you're the one that's occupying, you're the blockader, you're the one that issues the IDs, and everyone has to register through you, and also you authorize what can go through the contested areas like any checkpoints, then you are the ruler of that land. So how can you argue that they're not the ruler of the land? And then when you do agree with me that they're the rulers of the land, you have to agree with me they have to give certain rights to their people. They cannot just completely suffocate one group and kick them out and then let the other group live in harmony. It's almost like in America, if we suffocated the Native Americans and kicked them out, it would be a war crime. It would be a national disaster.
All right. So I took notes because you put a few things. Just to cap off, because you did say one thing that I wanted to say for the last argument we were just having about proportionality. I never said there was no civilians being killed. I said they used proportionality. But yeah, since you wanted to move on. And
yeah,
then,
but your proportionality doesn't add up because
less than 1 civilian death per bomb dropped isn't showing proportionality.
Where's this? Where's this?
I could pull it up, but it's been a while since I've seen it. It might be more than that.
I've never read statistics. The statistic I'm reading is they've emptied bombs on they've emptied their arsenal of bombs on apartment complex. They've multiple times they've emptied their weapons arsenals.
It was the Human Rights Watch that came out with that number. And then moving on.
When was this? In 1999?
Let me look, but probably not. I gotta pull it back up 1 second. Per civilian.
Yeah, I've never read that statistic. I mean, even if that is true, you can't argue that when you see 30,000 civilians dead in 6 months.
Okay, there we go. It was in...
Let's say it's true. It doesn't even map on reality anymore.
I would even agree with that statement. But again, I feel like this also just doesn't have any correlation to this argument, because I feel like, again, that can all be... I don't want to say justified, but if there is a security risk more than there is a apartheid intent, it's not apartheid. That's the whole case of this argument, okay? But moving on. You said full legal ownership of the Gaza Strip. I do agree. Like I said, I'm not going to argue that the Gaza Strip isn't owned by Israel, or at least isn't under the control of. Or wait, you made a lot of points, okay? And then again, when you're talking about reducing casualties, there's a reason that Israel has so many casualties being done. Do you know why that is? It's not because of Israel having to find a, they're dropping a bomb. They're like, oh no, there was accidentally a civilian there. It's more of Hamas acts in civilian territories. Do you know if Hamas would instead make a formal military and be easily distinguishable, which is actually a war crime that they're not, it would be a lot easier for them to do that. Now, and then when you say, what if their intent, you said something along the lines of, their intent isn't this, but it's still this. Intent is 2/3 of the law. Intent is the law here. There's a difference between systematic oppression and there's apartheid. And then with your 100 cases of Palestinian kids jailed, again, I feel like as long as they can show, which they have to for court, you can say that their justice system is fucked up, which is what you're here to do. So I hope we get into that. But as long as the judicial system was used correctly, that's how that works. And then horrific crimes being shown, I agree. Horrific crimes have nothing to be done with this. Obviously, with war, you can show horrific crimes on both sides. That's a fact of war, right? But the war crime comes in not from one soldier doing one act. It comes from a military doing an act. There's a reason that you could try a military personnel as his own person if he does something wrong, and then when war crimes, you convict an entire military because that is a planned move that they're doing. It's their intent behind it. This entire thing wraps around intent. And then how is bombing okay was another thing you said. And again, they're working proportionality. They're doing door knocking. They're doing calls. They've showed they're doing a lot more than they like morally and legally have to in this situation, especially after October 7th. I would say today they have a way more authority to stop dropping as many fucking bombs as they are. It's crazy, okay? But they still did more than they even had to do. So if they were trying to kill Palestinians, they probably wouldn't be. And then why are you choosing Gaza and not West Bank? Is it because there may be a difference between them, even though they're both Palestinians? Isn't it weird how the West Bank has a lot different restrictions than Gaza? Is it maybe because Gaza has way more violent attacks from it? And then authority has nothing to do with this argument. So the mention of like, we can argue about it if we want to, but yeah, there's nothing to argue about if Israel is the authority. I agree. We can, for the sake of the argument, okay? And then give certain rights to people. There's a reason that whenever it comes to this, that they have to discriminate against Palestinian people. That's not because they hate Palestinians, because the West Bank doesn't get discriminated as much as Gaza Strip does. There's a reason they have to do that. It's because Hamas has no formal military. And it's just crazy. But
yeah. So they don't have formal because of the IDF. They completely control them. But anyways, so
wait, no, pause on that. Pause on that. Wait 1 second. What do you mean they completely control them is stopping them from making a formal military?
Like for example, when Hamas was elected in office, they went ahead and told them, no, we don't recognize you as the electing power. So even like, for example, police forces are not allowed to hold weapons. Even though they are the actual governing authority, they're not allowed to hold weapons. They have curfews on them that apply to every single citizen in Gaza and the West Bank equally, even to the authorities and political people. That's what I mean.
So when you say that, that's true, right? Okay, I'll even give you a little bit of that, okay? But here's the problem. You can say, oh, IDF would stop them from forming a military. That's because it's their right to. They're attacking them. It's like, oh, if Hamas makes a military, the IDF would just kill them. That's the point. They're being attacked.
You could do the same argument from Hamas side. You could say, well, we need the military because the IDF is illegally occupying us.
Yeah, they also need a military because it's a war crime to attack without a military. There's a reason that perfidy is a war crime.
It's a war crime to attack without a military. Do you know that occupiers are not allowed to defend themselves?
What does that have to do with this?
Basically, what you're trying to say is October 7 justified all of this 30,000 atrocities. I'm telling you, legally speaking, they're not even justified for that. I don't know where you can justify that. I still now, I'm actually trying to ask you, can you justify the 30,000 even with October 7? Let's say even October 7 was a war. It was a war crime. They went in, stole people, killed them, came back. You still cannot justify 30,000. And you still, for some reason, in the same breath, are able to say that we're trying to not, there's no intention of removing civilians or killing civilians. And if we knew that civilians were dying, we would not be dropping the bomb. That's impossible because we know that special ops are being deployed and then basically sent back because they're failing their missions. They're taking too many losses. So what's happening is this is the fastest, easiest way to just drop as many bombs, killing people, even though they know that they're going to kill people. So you cannot actually argue that there's no intent of malicious intent, and you cannot argue that this is justified. You actually can't.
So let me I have one thing. When you said intent, I've never stated once that Israel does not have...
Yeah, you said that it needs a malicious intent for that crime to be...
Malicious.
The level of... And like, for example...
That's a very important word.
Systematically.
but malicious was used right there. Did you see that?
Yeah. You
Okay.
did use that.
Yeah. So whenever I say malicious, it has to be intentionally for the purpose of killing civilians. Now let's move on to well, now let's move on. This is a question I have for you.
Let me ask you. No. Before we move on.
I was moving on. It was a
possible that
question
we
to you
can-
for about this.
I say, really, just write the note. I really want to get to the point. Is it possible that we can pull out intent from a statement? Can you pull out intent from a certain statement?
Of course you can. That's
You
like
can
2/3 of
speculate,
the.
right? You might be wrong, but you can speculate, right? For example, the Balfour Declaration, it didn't say we're gonna kick out and annex the Palestinian land, but the outcome was to annex the Palestinians people. So you can say the intent of the Balfour Declaration was to annex the Palestinian. At least speculate, correct? We could speculate.
True, but that speculation would be incorrect because why then, when it came to the partition plan, would they have allowed an Arab majority to be in their state during that time period? Not by land, but by population.
That's because it has nothing to do with Balfour at that point.
But
It was the
wait, your
UN
point was that
declared.
okay. So you're saying the intention has changed over time. I could buy that.
No, I'm telling you that the people that were writing the laws, the UN, it doesn't change intentions. The UN just describes what's the reality of what's happening, and then the people around the UN are what changes. For example, the UN doesn't ascribe the laws. The UN just argues after a territory. Like after a problem
Territorial
happens
dispute.
between territory complaint, then they find who is the victor and they grant him his rights, and they grant rights for the loser as well. But they don't actually go in and affect any of the laws of the actual fight.
Well, actually, they do a lot. There's a lot of laws that affect the law of
Basically,
fight.
they don't affect Balfour Declaration on how he's going to kick out the Palestinians. They're just going to allow him to basically create the Israeli state.
Because
they don't
they
affect how
never
he kicks out.
they never found the intention behind it, and I still don't. But we're still waiting. But also, back to what we were talking about a second ago.
You can speculate. You can speculate.
You can, but speculation can be wrong. Okay, but who has
That's
the
true.
bigger? Who's in the bigger wrong here? Israel for hitting civilians while trying to hit Hamas targets because Hamas identifies as civilians, or is it on Hamas for endangering civilians by identifying as civilians instead of wearing like a sigil?
I think Israel, if they know that they're going to kill civilians, they have the biggest wrong, because you have to understand, to Hamas, a settler is not a civilian. Okay, a settler to them is a colonial power. Okay, so, and that's what I'm telling you. I'm trying to argue with you. They did not break any of their charters. They did not go after babies. These rape cases and all these bullshit and burning of people and kids and beheadings, it's complete lies, turns out. They never broke their charter ever. Whereas Israel is continuously creating crimes and committing crimes that are impossible to even understand and believe. Shooting down hospitals, schools, complete apartment complexes down just for one terrorist. Read Breaking Dawn. Read Operation Breaking Down. This was before October 7. One terrorist brought down the whole complex, 55 people injured, and I think 55 people killed and the rest were injured. Insane. So the idea that there's no malicious intent and that Hamas has the malicious intent, but IDF doesn't, you cannot justify, you cannot prove that, because they never broke their charter. Hamas never broke their charter. The settlers to them are not civilians. They're actual war people. They're coming to take their land. So to them, they're justified to kill them. It's almost like the Native Americans grabbed their arrows and started running around killing these cowboys. I get it. The cowboys are going to get upset, but the Native Americans, they believe that's their actual God-given right. And are you going to say the Native Americans were wrong for defending their country? No, you're not going to say that. There's atrocities happening, of course. There's going to be crimes happening, but one side is losing. It's in the gutter. It's lost all of its power, while the other side is actually a colonizer. Like it's taking over their land. So you cannot actually put them in the same envelope.
Why?
Does
Why
that
would
make
you?
any sense to you?
I kind of want to see you dive into that a little bit. Why do you think that they can't be considered the same? I know you just kind of, but if you had to simplify it.
Gaza doesn't get the amount of monetary rewards and actual support like any other, like for example Israel does.
You know,
it's Western help.
Isn't Gaza getting like the number like one amount of like aid in the world, which would be like financial like support?
Aid like food?
Like per capita, yeah, they're getting the most aid in the world.
Yeah, they're getting the most aid. Usually, what country gets the most aid? Is it the most developed country, or is it the least developed country gets the most aid in the world? What do you think?
It would be the most least developed. I would give you that one. But
Right?
again,
Yeah,
I feel
exactly.
like we're kind of getting off on a tangent here. I'm not here to argue that Gaza
No, we're getting
isn't-
away.
Okay, but I'll let you lead for two conversations. Can I lead with one?
Man, but you have to agree with me that you cannot justify 30,000 civilians because of October 7. You have to agree there.
You can. I don't think the number ever has a play in the argument. I think it's all about the intent. There's a reason that what's the old statement that
Well,
we
I believe that they're intending to take over and annex Gaza.
but
Can
every
you not
time I
see
ask you
that?
for an argument, you're always pointing to the number, not the intention behind the number. So I'm asking you, where
All
can you
right.
show intention?
All right, for example, I'll show you intention. For example, if they really, really, like you are saying, cared about civilian casualties and wanted to reduce them, they can reduce them by sending in special ops, reducing their bombardment operations, reducing their droning into surveillance rather than actual live missiles shooting. They can actually do so many different things that they're not doing. They pulled out their special ops. Every time they send in ground troops, they pull them out because they get so much damage, they get so much casualties. So they realize they're losing the ground battle. Their only way to do it, to win this battle, is to drop these bombs. So you cannot say that they are not. But so what I'm telling you is they have to drop them bombs even though they know they're going to kill people. So there is intent. There is intent because they know the only way to reduce casualties is by bringing in the special ops, and they're not doing that. Every time they send them in, they have to bring them back out because they're taking too much damage. So they know the only way to take over this territory is to bomb, and they know that when they bomb, they do more damage than special ops, but they know that's their only option. What's your argument against that?
I have a pretty good response for that. Is any of what you just said like illegal? Is there any requirement for you to use special ops in war? In war, is there any requirement for you to go boots on ground in war? And also
Is there any requirement? Yeah, for example, for Islamic law, we are not allowed to just bombard the country. You have to be one-on-one, man to man. You cannot put civilians at risk. You cannot put women at risk. You cannot even hurt trees. You have to be man to man. War zones. We have laws against war zones. Yeah, in war zones.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about international though. Is there a single international law that says you have to have boots on ground, or if there is a point at which you have to use special ops? The answer is no. I can just tell you. There is no international law that has a requirement behind that.
Okay, is there an international law that says you have to reduce the casualties of civilians as much as possible if you're committing occupation? Is there a law on the books like that?
Of course, it's called proportionality, and a lot of the investigations that have gone into Israel's proportionality have agreed that their conclusions have been forthright and correct. There have been well, not niche. I don't want to say niche because that sounds like I'm, hand waving it. There have been pretty bad situations
I'm
where
not sure.
we've
How
seen
can you
them.
actually argue that? What proportionality? Give me like an example of one of their arguments.
So
How can they say that it's proportional? Because when I was talking to non-fan, he said if there was one civilian and 10 Hamasis in the building, and you have to drop that bomb instead of sending special ops, that's proportional. But that's never the case. The case is usually one Hamasi and 10 civilians, and they're still dropping the bombs.
because when it comes down to it, when it comes to proportionality, there's two things, okay? There is the cost of civilian life, and it's called the cost of civilian life for a reason. And then, is it a military target? A military target, if anything is a military target, it loses its protection. But there's a reason for that. There's a very strict line of what a military target is. A military target for an attack is a target that, through its nature and content or use, would be an effective contribution to military actions of the other side. So what it's saying is are there people there? Wait, where have we seen this before? Are there tunnels that could be used for military movement? Where would those be? Would those be out in, open or under, apartments? Because I've seen claims of why is Israel using the amount of bombs they are, or the weight of the bombs they're using, because they're using pretty high weight bombs. They're using bunker busters or something like that. There's a reason for that. It's because they're trying to get the tunnels under, because that's what Hamas is using for their military operations. And we know that.
I guess I'm reading here is their proportionality law saying that even though we try to reduce as much as possible the casualties, we're still going to create casualties. So that's why we're justified to create casualties.
That is the international law as defined it. I mean, kind of. You said it very weird, but yeah, basically, as long as they have.
It says it right here. If Israel conducted every strike lawfully and with all of the military precision that technology allows, many horrible deaths of innocent civilians would still occur. The law of war recognizes that risk to civilians and civilian civilian property in a war are both inevitable and tragedy. The law seeks to mitigate this risk while recognizing the harsh realities of war. Okay, so they recognize here that civilians, in a war zone, civilians are going to be at risk. So can you tell me why are they not sending in special ops then?
Because I'll ask you again, is there any legal requirement to send in special ops? If
Yeah,
you
you have to make sure you keep civilians' lives risk down because you know when you drop bombs on densely populated area, you know that you're gonna create deaths. So you cannot do that.
and
That's what
special
I'm
ops
reading here.
doesn't,
Special ops do not drop bombs. They go in and they do man-to-man, one-on-one action. They do grenades and stuff, but that's not like a 2,000 pound bomb.
but
It's
they
different.
do have
It just takes
civilian.
out an apartment
There are
complex.
civilian casualties though, right?
Sure, but it's so much. Look, that's what I'm telling you.
Wait.
Even then, you're gonna have civilian casualties, but still, it's super reduced. It's so much more reduced, and then you cannot justify saying I'm not gonna send special ops because they're gonna die. How can you do that? How can you justify not sending special ops because they're gonna die, and then knowingly killing more civilians than the special ops you would have sent? For example, what I'm trying to tell you, let's say you're going to a building, you know the special ops are gonna go in there, but 50% of them are gonna die. So what you say is, instead of sending the 10 special ops, I'm just gonna bomb the building, even though I know 100% of the civilians in there are gonna die, and I'm not sure what the number is. That proportionality does not add up. That's illegal. That's a war crime. That has to be it. From what I read right now.
Again, no. And again, as well, when you say, oh, well, some special ops might die, I'll pose to you a hypothetical. Let's say that you have a gun on you and a knife, okay? And someone comes at you with a knife. But if you use the gun, it would be unfair, and you might shoot someone behind it. You might cause damages, right? Are you morally required to use the knife against a person coming at you with a knife?
Bro, I don't know, man. I would. I don't even know. How can I answer this? I mean,
Okay, I can ask it simpler.
What's your question? Is it what?
I can ask it simpler. In the situation in which someone is being the aggressor upon you, okay, are you morally required to make it an equal fight? If someone comes at you with a knife and you have a gun and a knife on you, are you required morally to use the knife against them? Because
Look,
they are?
Yeah, I see where you're going. Now I see where you're going. You're not required morally to make
Or
it
legally.
equal, but you're morally required to not put anybody else in danger. For example, if you know that gun shooting is gonna hurt 3 more guys, and you're not sure, and he has a knife, you do not sit there shooting the gun. You're not justified for shooting the gun.
You just let
because
yourself
you
get
might kill
stabbed?
3 more people. Because just by saving yourself, you might kill 3 more people. How do you justify that? How is that proportional?
Let me ask you again, though. So are you, in that situation that you just made, are you supposed to let yourself get stabbed?
You fight back without putting other people's lives in danger. Yes.
So you believe that in a situation where you are being aggressed upon, you are supposed to equally respond to the threat instead of using a better way that protects you better?
You're asking me. I'm a gangster. I never miss. But for example, for somebody else that misses, he's scared. He's shaking.
That was a lie.
For somebody else is shaking, you know, the guy's running. Wallah al-azim, I had a guy running at me with a knife. Wallah al-azim. Look, for somebody else that was shaking, and I still fought him with no guns, nothing, just hand to hand. And I got my fucking hand fucked. Anyway, yeah, if till now, it's like 6 years old. It fucks your hand. So I know what you mean. A knife is dangerous. It doesn't murder you, though. It's not an immediate death. So it's, but when you talk about a gun, I would never use a gun when somebody's running at me with a knife, ever. I'll try to, unless I know for sure there's nobody behind him and it's a clean shot. And why would I put anybody else's life at risk? I don't want to be worrying about legal fees and all these legalities. Even though I know I get it, I'm gonna die. But even when I get in a car accident, I still worry about my car and what I'm gonna have to take care of, what I'm gonna have to pay. So I can still dabble with that. So I'm actually not gonna put anybody's life at risk. But you're asking me, maybe somebody else would.
I was about to say, yeah, I do think it's different there. So I agree.
I have a moral compass that rules me, though. Like, the problem is, I think what we're talking about is people that don't have a moral compass. For example, you still cannot justify why is it okay, knowing that 50% of your special ops would die, you don't send them in, and you still send in a bomb to kill, knowing you will hurt civilians? Shouldn't the proportionality law force you at that point to actually send in the special ops? Can you explain to me a little bit more about this proportionality law? Because from what I read and I understood, it's actually saying it's illegal for you to bomb that building if you know if you're only doing it to save your special ops, from what I'm understanding, from what I read, it says it's illegal. Because we all know in war there's casualties. We know soldiers are gonna die. So why are we killing civilians if we know the soldiers are gonna die over the soldiers?
So when it comes to proportionality, I can answer that. When it comes to proportionality law, basically it has to be, the intent has to be a military objective. That's basically just every single time. It's going to say in fewer words, more words. It's going to say it has to be a military objective. So are you asking me that if I said your response was, would they kill civilians because their special ops might die? Maybe they would. So maybe they shouldn't send in special ops. But again, if we both have differing opinions morally, which we already both know we do both have, I don't want to get into the moral argument. Why don't we go into the actual argument here, the legality argument? There is no legal case saying if this many people die or if this situation is happening, you have to send in special ops. You are allowed to engage in war how you see fit as long as you abide by the laws of war.
There is a legal case. There is a legal case. You cannot do as much crime as you possible. You're right. The international community recognizes there's going to be tragedy in war, which is why you should stop crying about October 7. But next is... exactly, yeah, but they also recognize you have to reduce those casualties as much as possible, which is what the crime laws are for, which is why the South African nation was able to bring to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, a case asking them, hey, they're committing genocide. Look, we get it. They get to defend themselves, but there's a proportionality here that they're going above. And if you want, we can read through that case. It's very, very detailed. And it talks exactly about your position here, the proportionality position. They actually address that. It's improportional, the amount of damage that's been happening.
So again, how did that ICJ case end again? I'm just trying to refresh my memory. How did that? What was the outcome?
My understanding is they're still in talks.
But how did the first? What was the outcome of the first one when it came to ruling against a ceasefire and for a ceasefire? Do you remember how that one ended? If you want to know, they didn't end up saying...
Which one?
ICJ, the South Africa, the one that they brought up, okay? There's a reason that at the end of that, they didn't call for a ceasefire. Why do you think that was? If you think that they didn't...
Did it actually end?
They just ruled on should there be a ceasefire. I don't know if they made a conclusion. I'm pretty sure they did, but I could be wrong.
I don't think they finished the conclusion.
I do know, though, that when it came to calling for a ceasefire, they didn't.
Wait a minute. That's because they weren't allowed to. Were they allowed to actually push out? But there's a reason. Can we read that out? Can you read it? Here, I'm gonna find it.
I would rather not go into the ICJ case, but if
okay,
you have some specific excerpts you want to take from it.
Because they actually believe that there could be a case for a ceasefire, but there was like a certain non-binding agreement or something. That's why they didn't. Because it's a non-binding agreement, anyways. So even. I think they did issue a ceasefire, but then it didn't. It doesn't pan out. It doesn't. It's not binding.
So from what I remember, the conclusion that they came to was Israel has to try their best to reduce civilian casualties, which I think is the point you're making here. And again, from all we're seeing, that's exactly what they're doing.
How? How can you say that when you're dropping dumb bombs on apartment complexes and hospitals and schools, homes? What?
So again, I'll ask you, why were they dropping bombs on schools and hospitals? Why did they drop it on the Al Shifa hospital? Why was that a target?
Al Ahli hospital.
Wait,
because Al Shifa is.
Why was that hospital a target?
Let's talk about Al Ahli, because Al Ahli is a later hospital. It was bombed earlier in the war, so there's more reports and more documented reports on this. Al Ahli hospital, for example, do you know about that case?
Is this the one where it was bombed outside in the parking lot, or which one are you referring to?
Yeah, so what happened was...
the parking lot got bombed?
The parking lot got bombed, and then the actual hospital got bombed, but they blamed Hamas. Turns out it was Israel.
I would like to say that most of the investigations that have been done into that have ruled that it was actually a jihadist terrorist organization that wasn't Hamas nor Israel.
No, I actually read go to Human Rights Report, write Human Rights Report, Al Ahli Hospital. The first sentence will say, Al Ahli Hospital appears to be attacked by a Hamas misfired rocket. Then the second line they say, here, I'll read it out to you, right? I'll actually read Human Rights Watch. The explosion that killed... Okay, the explosion that killed and injured many civilians at Al Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza on October 17, 2023 resulted from an apparent rocket-propelled munition, such as those commonly used by the Palestinian armed groups that hit the hospital grounds, Human Rights Watch said today. While misfires are frequent, further investigation is needed to determine who launched the apparent rocket. So they don't know who actually.
It seems like
what
everything
the
they just said
munition is.
points towards
They're just
Palestinians.
assuming. They're just assuming. But no, look. I'll continue.
You can
here.
assume
Attack
pretty
ammunition-
well. You can see how the bomb spread. You can see how it resonated. You can see where it came from. You can see the time of the attack. You can see the sound. You can see everything to make a
the
pretty
joke
clear
is-
conclusion.
No, the joke is they say that the people were in the hospital because they're running away from Israeli bombardment.
Wait.
And then all of a sudden it was a misfiring of Hamas munition.
Wait, we're getting off track. But you claimed a second ago that you were sure this was Israel and it was confirmed. And when you look into it, it's still pointing at
because-
Palestine. And this was the
when
link
look
you
into it,
found.
They say it's an apparent rocket-propelled munition, but then they tell you we don't have any we need more investigation. So why the hell are they claiming it's a Hamas-propelled missile?
Because
This is showing the misinformation.
Because the missile that was used is the type commonly used by them. Israel doesn't use the type of missiles Gaza used.
Actually, they did not. Actually, they need more studies on the missile. I don't know where the hell human rights.
But they still know. They still have drawn that conclusion. And they also have drawn a conclusion on every other thing. Every other side has done this. And they have all said, by the way, hey, we think this was done by a jihad terrorist organization. But remember, you came into this confirming. You came in with a definite, this is Israel. And that wasn't even true.
Yeah, but you're acting like it's even the reports are acting like it's Hamas, but they don't even know either.
I didn't say it was Hamas. I
We're
said
both wrong.
I said that as the investigations appear to come to the conclusion of it being a jihadist terrorist organization, I didn't even make a definite claim. I made an indefinite claim that could be proven wrong, could be proven right. You came in with the definite claim, and that's the danger there. You thought that you were so clear on being right that you came into it. That's like, you see the danger
The
there.
Ministry of Health in Gaza said Israel was responsible for the explosion. The Israeli military said the explosion resulted from an Islamic Jihad rocket that misfired.
Okay.
The decades-long failure of both Israeli and Palestinian authorities to credibly and impartially investigate alleged violations of international humanitarian law underscores the need for an independent investigation into the incident. So they don't even know. This side is saying that.
And I didn't make a definite claim. You did.
Okay, but we can look at the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter, people ran into the hospital running away from bombardment, from Israeli bombardment. All of a sudden, the hospital got bombarded.
The parking lot.
Who else would be dropping those bombardments? And
What-
if it's so clear and these munitions are so common in Hamas, why didn't they immediately declare that was Hamas munition?
They
Why are they
did.
saying we still need investigation?
Israel
We
came
don't
out and
even
said-
know?
wait.
It appears to be a Hamas munition, but we
It's
don't know.
because Israel came out and said that. And the reason that they've not come to that
Exactly, it's
conclusion.
misinformation.
Wait. Israel has said that Gaza did it. Gaza has said that Israel did it. Every third-party source has that Hamas has or a terrorist organization has done it from Palestine. Okay, you understand the difference there, right? I'm not taking the biased information. I'm taking the third parties that don't have a horse in this race. You understand that? And also,
the third party is using those guys' allegations.
that's all whose else allegations are
human
supposed to take?
Human Rights Watch is literally saying that look, let me finish. A type of munition that Human Rights Watch has not been able to conclusively identify. What the fuck are you making it saying that's Hamas then? Look, listen to me. This is how much misinformation. This is why I get it now. I know why you're confused.
Wait.
They're lying.
You came in with
They
the
don't
wrong
even know
assumption
it's a
here.
Hamas missile, but they're saying it's a Hamas missile, even though they don't know. A type of munition that Human Rights Watch has not been able to conclusively identify hit a paved area inside the hospital compound. But listen, between a parking lot and a landscaped area where many civilians congregated to seek safety from Israeli strikes. So you're telling me Human Rights Watch knows that people ran into the hospital seeking safety from Israeli strikes. They got striked, but lo and behold, we are not sure. This is inconclusive. It could be a Hamas missile. Really? Do we really have to investigate this?
That was a very interesting way to phrase that. I think the better way to phrase that is Israel saw that a hospital got bombed, and they were like, we have no record of this. They have top-down authorization through their bombings. So they were like, let's look into this. They didn't see it. So then they said, it must have been a misfire. Hamas said, nope, look, they're attacking a hospital. Then third party was like, there's an easy way to find out who did this. Let's do our own investigations. Let's see how the bomb dropped. Let's see the after effects. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see if we can find the trajectory. And every single case pointed at it coming from Palestine. You can't say it is Hamas though, because if you say it's Hamas,
That's not actually true. Show me. Show
You
me
read
the Human
it.
Rights Watch. No, that's not true. No,
Wait,
actually,
didn't it say-
they don't show that.
did it not say near the end that all roads lead to Rome? All evidence points to it being from a terrorist organization in Palestine.
Look, they say that, but they also no, I don't think they actually say that. But
You read
they,
it.
I didn't read all. I'll read in the end here in a second. But what they do say is they say that this side says that they did it, and this side says that they did it. We're not sure. We're inconclusive, but we're still gonna report as if it's this side that did it. Why the fuck did they report that? Like, look, read it, read it. The explosion that killed and injured many civilians at the Ahli Hospital, October 17, 2023, resulted from an apparent rocket-propelled munition, such as those commonly used by Palestinian armed groups, that hit the hospital grounds. They have no idea. They just believe it because it looks like something that's already hit before. So they have no idea. So while misfires are frequent, further investigation is needed. They have no idea. They don't know. They just made a claim because that's the first thing that the Israeli government told them. So they made a claim on it. But there's even them saying, even though they're very, goody two shoes with the Israeli government, they're like, you know what? We still need to investigate. We're not sure because this other side is saying that they were bombarded, or sorry, they didn't do it. It was them that did it. And then we also know that they were getting bombarded by Israel. So we could find that maybe we do need more investigation. So even the Human Rights reports, or Human Rights Watch, wrote a report saying that it's inconclusive. Even though Israel is saying that they didn't do it, we're inconclusive. We can't actually believe them.
And do you think it's dangerous whenever, do you think if their Human Rights Watch came out with a definite answer, would that be dangerous? If they came out and they said it is if the Human Rights Watch came out,
Human Rights says, oh my God, looks like there's a Hamas misfiring. At least they explained it like misfiring. But Israel, they will never say it's a misfiring. They'll be like,
that's what they did
oh,
say.
Israel actually bombed the hospital on purpose. Yeah, we actually need. We need the Human Rights Watch to give us a real report. They actually need to give us a conclusion and investigation. Yes.
And what was their conclusion?
Because we can't trust every single authority there. They're so biased.
And do you agree with their conclusion of all evidence points to it being from Palestine?
Where did you read that? I just read to you that they don't have no evidence.
What missile do they think was used? One commonly used
They
by...
believe it's a common munition, but they don't actually...
Used
they've never
by...
even looked at the munition. They actually never even seen the munition.
And half the time when we convict people in murder, we don't see the murder. You can still come to conclusions without directly firsthand accounting something.
Exactly what I'm telling you. They ran into the hospital seeking refuge from bombardment. They got bombarded. Who the hell bombarded them? Huh?
Their own people there.
We can come up with this, what is it? Deductive logic?
Sure. But here's what I'll say this. Do you see the danger if they did come out and make a definite? Do you see the danger of if the Human Rights Watch came out? Yeah. Do you see the danger in that, the misinformation there? You would be okay if the Human Rights Watch came out and said it was Hamas 100%.
Are you talking about this report currently, or are you talking about future report?
Yes. Do you think that would be bad in misinformation?
I absolutely believe you. This is insane. They're so misrepresenting the point because you have to read through the article to even know what the hell happened. They're saying here it appears to be a rocket-propelled munition that Hamas did, but then they actually claim that we have no investigation. We need more investigation. We don't know. This claims this one. And that guy claims that. Holy shit! They're so liars. I believe you. You have to read every single report.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So then, do you agree with me that whenever you brought up this conversation and said that Israel was confirmed for hitting the attack, that was pretty bad misinformation and misrepresented the argument?
What I said confirmed as in...
you said a definite. You gave me a definite.
Deductive logic. So they're getting bombarded everywhere. They're running to the hospital to run from the bombardment. This is claiming that Hamas did it, and it's trying to help you, but it failed, but with no evidence. So why am I supposed to believe that Hamas is the one that bombed the rocket? My deductive logic tells me, and reasoning tells me, it has to be Israel, because there's no way and if it is Hamas, it's a misfiring, and so I can't even say Hamas is devil for this because they did it by mistake, whereas Israel did it on purpose. So you see the difference? Hamas misfired. Israel bombarded a hospital. Like, it's totally two different cases. Like, even if you do find that Hamas was the one doing it, again, I'm proven that they don't break their charter, they don't hurt civilians, they're not even for false flag attacks that can help them gain more support from the international community.
So wait, whenever this was Israel attacking the hospital, you described it as a brutal attack on a hospital full of civilians seeking to hide. And then whenever the evidence misrepresents that, or as you would say misrepresents, and shows that it actually might have been Hamas, you mischaracterize it and you change it to it was an accident and it's okay with their charter because they didn't affect civilians. They did. They shot a bomb next to a hospital. By the way, I don't even think it hit the hospital. I think it hit the parking lot, which was another key piece of evidence. But if it did, that directly puts civilians in danger. You know what also puts civilians in danger? Firing from hospitals. Hospitals where you go to recover from attacks. Using that as a military target is going to get that attacked on top of it. Do you see that?
Okay, man. I understand what you're saying.
We can move on. We can move to a new point if you want to move on from
You're
this.
trying to say I have two different morals, compasses. No, that's not true.
I've never said anything like
what I'm telling you is
that.
I'm looking at the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter is
The fact of Israel bombing that hospital?
Israel is trying to kick people out of their homes. They're trying to kick them out of their town. They're trying to terrorize them. They ran to the Al Ahli hospital, hoping to God that this is a safe zone, and then they got bombarded there. Now, you're right. You're trying to claim that it's Hamas, and I'll give it to you. Let's claim it's Hamas.
I don't even
if
claim it's
gave it to
Hamas.
you,
I
if
don't even
gave
make
it to
that
you, it's
claim.
Hamas. Do you agree that there's two different intentions between one bomb and the other? Do you agree that? And do you agree that, like you said, intentions matter, like really heavy? Earlier in the debate.
Yeah, so whenever you look at the intention of Hamas of firing from a civilian hospital, why do you think they do that?
So my question
What's the
is,
intention there?
so you're changing it a little bit. So my intention, like, do you understand that there's a misintention? Like they're not aligned the same. Both of them don't have the same intention. So Hamas is trying to defend that hospital. It's trying to defend the people and trying to reduce their ache. And yeah, sometimes they do create ache. Yeah, okay. I'll give it to you, but still there's a difference in intent, whereas Israel is actually trying to create destruction. Now, you don't have proof that they're shooting from hospitals, but even if I give it to you that they're shooting from hospitals, I'll tell you, still Israel has to not be able, cannot bomb that hospital. Still, they still have to send in special ops. They still, show me where in the international community, I'll give it to you, I'll give you every single one of your arguments. Show me where in the international community it says, you're right. You should just bombard them instead of going in and try to reduce civilian casualties as much as possible. Every law in the book I ever see, it says always reduce casualties, no matter what. We understand casualties happens, but that doesn't give you a green light to just shoot bombs from the sky forever. You still have to create proportionality. You still have to try your best to reduce the civilian casualties. So you still cannot argue like that. You can't give. That's not gonna work.
Actually, there's an exact law for what you just asked for. So
right,
hospitals and medical units lose their protection if they are being used outside of their humanitarian function to commit acts harmful to the enemy. Would you agree that using a hospital as an interrogation room, firing rockets from a missile, would be harmful to the enemy?
So let me ask you this. So you think if when Ukraine went in and took a school, you actually justify Russia to bomb that school then? You actually justify Russia. You actually want Russia to bomb that school and the hospital down.
I mean, legally, it would be if, the Poland military is using it, but I don't know why we're, going off topic here. I want you to answer that question. Do you agree that that means that is Hamas using hospitals as to commit harmful acts against the enemy? Like you don't think the interrogation room in Al-Shifa,
You haven't shown proof.
What about the interrogation room in Al-Shifa?
What about Al-Shifa?
The interrogation room that's been shown there? The witness accounts from Hamas members that have even stated that? So wait. Before we even look this up, if I can show you that it's used as an interrogation room, will you bite the bullet and agree?
That's crazy to me. No, that's crazy to me. So you're saying to me because a terrorist was under a tunnel underneath the hospital, now you can bomb the hospital?
That is not what I said at all.
Do we see this legally to be the actually legal? I've never seen this before. Even Russia, when they did it, when they by mistake bombed a couple of apartment complexes, a fucking riot showed up in front of my house on Washington D.C. streets, rioting for Ukraine. You're telling me now it's totally justifiable? It's actually legal to sit there bombing hospitals and schools just because there's one Hamasi? Where is this law? Show me. I want to read it.
So when you say bomb by mistake, you're saying bombed by mistake. There's no intention to bomb that site. So that's already not even in this case, right? There was no intention, unless you want to get into that. But again, this has no bearing on this argument right now.
No, Russia knew that they're based in those schools and hospitals.
Again,
they knew it.
I have no horse in the race of Russia and Poland. I'm not Poland, Ukraine. I'm not here to argue that right now, okay? A tunnel under the hospital isn't the same. I don't know why you mischaracterized my argument as saying a tunnel under the hospital. I clearly stated a interrogation room and firing missiles from a hospital. Can we both agree?
Excuse me for not believing every single report, because the first report you mentioned about October 7th said 1,200. Now my recent report is saying 650 casualties. So
Numbers
excuse me
change.
for not believing every single report that shows up from the Israeli government. I apologize.
So
I'm
I
not
would-
going to believe every single report.
So usually what we see in war is, you know, the casualties go up as time goes on. But also, again, I'm not arguing the
They
numbers.
went down this time.
They can go
I'm
down.
talking about October 7th. October 7th, it started 1,200. Now the casualty is like 700, 650.
Again.
So how am I supposed to believe everything that these guys say? Show me the pictures of these interrogations. Show me the report. I actually never even read about this. I've never. You have no proof that they're using hospitals. Show me proof that they're using hospitals so you can justify murdering the people inside the hospital. Go ahead.
So I want to make sure that before I show proof of this, do you agree that if they are, it is a military target and right for Israel to attack?
No, I don't.
So then
agree,
why-
Because then you have to agree. Then you have to agree that because Ukraine took over a school, you have to bomb that whole school.
That's
down.
how the
And I can
legal
agree.
works. If a military is using something for military purposes, it loses its protection by civilian basis. That is how the
Even
law
if
works.
they have civilian hostages.
Yes, that is how the law works. If it is used for military
No,
purposes, it is
no, I
a
don't
military
agree.
target. You can disagree, but that's the law.
Show it to me. Show
I
it to
mean,
me.
okay, wait. I'm gonna say the same thing. If I show this to you and it's right, do you agree?
Show it to me. Let me. I want to read, because every time
Okay.
you've mentioned a thing like proportionality, turns out it was actually on my side. It was telling me you cannot bombard every.
Here I
Anybody
put
you
it
want.
in chat. Ooh, it might have not give you everything. Let me see if I can get it better. But go to roll 28 and go to the top of medical unit. Is that it? Yep, medical units at the top. Make sure you pull it up and I'll read it out loud while you're reading it. Medical units
Sure.
exclusively assigned to medical purposes must be respected and protected in all circumstances. They lose their protection if they are being used outside of their humanitarian function to commit harmful acts upon the enemy.
This is the international humanitarian law, Rule 28.
And then read the
So
big bold lettering.
What is this database? Who
This
does
is
this
the-
actually?
this is the database for
who
international
follows
law.
these Humanitarian law.
Anyone that
follow-
follows
who-
international law. This is the international law database for laws of war.
Okay, give me a second. Let me read through this.
Okay.
So this is trying to say that. No, let me see. This rule goes back to the protection of hospitals and places where the sick and wounded are collected. In the Hague regulations, it is set forth in the first and fourth Geneva Convention. Its scope was expanded in additional protocol. This extension is widely supported in the state. Under statute of the International Criminal Court, intentionally directing attacks against hospitals and places where the sick and wounded are collected, provided they are not military objectives, and against medical
Military
units
objectives.
using distinctive emblems
Distinctive emblems.
of the Geneva Convention in conformity with international law constitutes a war crime in international armed conflict. This rule is contained in numerous military manuals. Okay, wait. So they actually just said what I.
They did not at all say what you said. They lose protection if they
Under
are a
the
military
statute of the
target.
International Criminal. Let me see. Under a statute of International Criminal Court, intentionally directing attacks against hospitals and places where the sick and wounded are collected, provided they are not military.
Military
objectives.
target. Yep, right there.
Okay, they're not military objectives.
Wait, how does something
And
define as a military
against
objective?
medical units, and also medical units,
Yep.
using distinctive emblems of the Geneva Conventions in conformity with international law, constitutes a war crime in international armed conflict. This is talking about like the World Kitchen.
It's talking about like hospitals in war. And it says if it is a military
Yep.
target, it can be attacked. And what defines something as
No,
a
it
military
says
target,
hospitals. No, yeah. Okay, so hospitals and places where the sick and wounded are collected, provided they are not military objectives.
Yep.
So you're saying Al-Shifa Hospital was a military objective?
what makes something a military objective? I'll give you the answer. I'm
No,
done with
you
this.
tell me what makes
I
something a
will.
military objective.
When it's used for military purposes.
When does hospital become a military objective?
Because when it's used for military purposes, it's in the big bold at the top. You just gotta scroll up and you'll see it. It literally says they lose protection if they are being used outside of their humanitarian function to commit harmful acts.
Okay,
Shooting
medical units-
rockets, and interrogation rooms are harmful acts. I think we would both agree.
Medical units exclusively assigned to medical purposes must be respected and protected in all circumstances. They lose that protection if they are being used outside their humanitarian function to commit acts harmful to the enemy. So they're talking about medical units like the doctor. They're not talking about hospitals. They're not talking about the actual building. They're talking
You are
about
correct.
medical units. So they're talking about people. So where did you see people these people are these doctors became Hamasis, and so it justifies shooting the hospital down. No, no, no. That's. I don't think this actually agrees with you at all.
It completely does, and I think anyone that knows how to read laws would agree. It says that if something is a military target, it's reasonable to be attacked. And by the way, the law against targeting
Where? It doesn't
You read
say it's
it.
reasonable to attack it. It says
It says it's legal too.
Military
Yep.
targets.
Right there. Military target means it's okay to be attacked. We agree on that, right? We can go step by step. If something is a military target, it's agreed to be attacked, right? Yes. If
Okay,
something,
but I don't believe. I still don't think they actually say you can now attack the hospital. Like, it doesn't change the hospital's designation as a hospital. It changes the medical unit's designation as a military objective. Doesn't change the hospital's designation as a military objective. Can you find that?
yes, I can. Do you know what it takes to a building to remove its civilian protection? Any building? I'm gonna give you a hint. It's the same answer. It has to be a military target.
Oh, let me guess. By the Israeli law.
Nope, by international,
having
but
a terrorist
close.
in the area.
Nope, international. As in the whole, world agreed on it back in the Geneva Conventions right after World War I.
Wow. So if there's any combatant in the school zone, that's the school zone can be bombed.
If the school zone is being used for military purposes, yes, it can be. And if you disagree with that, you can disagree with the law. That's okay, right? You can disagree with law.
This is easy.
But then don't
This is
say,
easy.
you have the law on your side and it's legally an apartheid
No,
state,
no,
'cause it's
this
not.
is easy. You just have to go ahead and show me. No, because you're misinterpreting the law. I doubt the law says the whole hospital can now be bombed because there's a tunnel underneath that possibly has a Hamas unit. First of all, have you actually proved that they were attacking from Al-Shifa?
I've
Besides
said
these
this.
interrogation
I will
rooms?
prove it once you agree that if I can prove it, you'll admit that that's right. If you
Okay,
admit,
okay, you're
for the
right.
sake of the argument,
Look, okay, so let's stick to this. So show me where it's okay. Well, I guess you did show me. It says if there's a terrorist, it becomes. Now, what I want you to show me is can you actually bomb? And is there no rules on bombing those hospitals once they become military objectives?
there's actually extreme rules on bombing them, and it has to be. They have to be in a military objective. If you're asking if there's like restrictions, yes, it's called proportionality, and both of those requirements Israel's followed throughout the war.
Once they're found as an objective, what's
Yep.
the law on that? Is there
Anything is an objective once
rules?
it's used for military basis. If it's used for military advantages, then it becomes a military target. It's the same reason. So there was actually a debate about this recently because Russia attacked it was a power grid place in Ukraine. And people were saying they can't do that. They're taking away civilians' power. But then there was a court case or there was a hearing about it. And they were like, well, the military uses that power as well. So it's a military objective. That's how that works.
So you're telling me the international law agrees that you can bomb a hospital. So why the hell was everybody mad at Russia then?
Because people get
When they
mad.
were
People are mad at
bombing
Israel
Ukraine.
for bombing hospitals. It's the same thing. People are usually mad when civilians get killed. It's pretty normal. I'm the same. But is it wrong or is it legally wrong are two very different things.
Non-international armed conflict. This rule is implicit and common, which requires that the wounded and sick be collected and cared for because the protection of medical units is a subsidiary form of protection afforded to ensure that the wounded and sick receive medical care. This is crazy. So they really do recognize that medical people are important. We have to keep them in a place, but then for some reason, they just
Not for some reason, for a very important reason. Because
show me
wait.
this definition, which builds upon Article 19. It is widely used in state. It's in absence of definition medical units. I mean, I'm actually in disbelief. I don't believe that because there's a terrorist in the area, now you can designate the hospital as a terrorist.
it's not just
military
one terrorist.
objective.
It's not just one terrorist. It's military advantages. That's what is the line at which they draw it.
So what does that mean? Like any person that has like a Hamasi that has a room in
If
there?
a place is used to give their military or their side in an armed conflict any sort of advantage in any way, it becomes a target. That's the rule. Because if something is a target,
But do you
Wait,
agree that's
wait.
very subjective, though?
no, that's
Because,
actually very easily to define it. That's why there are these
No,
laws.
it's actually very subjective. Basically, what you're telling me is if I take care of Hamas soldiers after they were wounded, I could be bombarded.
Yeah,
Because they're
no,
terrorists.
no.
And they're using it as a
that's
base
not
to
military.
take care of
I know there's iffy laws about that. It might be, but I know when it comes, if they're not currently fighting and they are just wounded, I think there are laws protecting people. But when they use it for an interrogation room, an active military objective, that's when it becomes a military target. But I could see either side on that.
Um. Okay. Well, every time I look a little bit more, it says here it's forbidden to turn
Ooh,
recognized
thank you,
civilian
Blur.
hospitals.
Wait, Blur just said if a hospital does include medical units to shelter able-bodied combatants, it is a military target and could be used as a military action and objective. So actually, yeah, I didn't know for sure, but hey, thanks, Blur. I mean, he has the
It says
link
here,
too.
I'm reading this. It says here it's forbidden to turn recognized civilians hospitals into a conflict zone. It is also forbidden to use civilian populations, the sick or injured, as human shields.
True, and you know who
That
does
is a war
that?
crime, as is
Hamas.
fighting from inside the hospital.
True, that's so wrong. That's such a war crime. You shouldn't use military targets inside of hospitals because you're gonna get them attacked. Why? Why did they do that? Why? I agree with you. Why does Hamas do that?
But Philip Gay said that if a civilian hospital is used for acts harmful to the enemy, that is the legal term used, the hospital can lose its protected
hospital.
status.
Not
under
medical units.
international law.
The hospital.
Yeah, but the other party must take all precautions to avoid intentionally targeting
Intentionally.
civilians.
Yep. Intentionally.
So even if the hospital is used for acts harmful to the enemy, Philip Gay said the other party does not have the right to bombard it for 2 days and completely destroy it, citing the need under international law for the response to be proportionate.
Everything that was just said lines up. Proportionality, intent, and military targets. The three things I've stated were both brought up, or all of them were brought up. But we can even move on from this because we are getting into like the weeds. I feel like, do you have any way to show that the intent behind Israel's laws is to commit a racial majority over the security interest that they need? Actually, wait, do you agree that Israel has a security interest when it comes to Palestine? Not that like it's right, or not that they're in the moral right, but that there is an actual threat.
So I want to go back to the hospital. You need to prove to me that they used the hospital. What was your evidence to claim that Al-Shifa was a military target or a military objective?
Again, I will, but if we're going to go down this rabbit hole, I want you to admit that if you do see something that actually... Okay, I'll just tell you this right now because I know this is where it's going to go to. There's no definite conclusion, at least as of right now, so you're going to have that to stick your head on, but all the conclusions point to it. It's just like the parking lot bombing.
Yeah, but you even agreed with me, speculations can be wrong.
What?
Yeah, you agreed with me when I tried to argue with you about the Al-Ahli hospital. You said that speculations can be wrong.
True. That's why you shouldn't make definite claims, like saying Israel definitely bombed that hospital.
I can tell you, I can assume that they did because they were the ones bombarding the area. There's no evidence that Hamas did it. Even the human rights is trying to spread misinformation. They failed. I can prove to you. That's how I proved. I showed you so many pieces of evidence. You haven't showed me one. Prove me one. Give me one piece of evidence that Hamas used that Al-Shifa hospital in a.
Oh, that doesn't look like it will work. Oh no, it will. That link is some evidence, but it's from the IDF, so you'll discredit that. Units of military intelligence operated from Al-Shifa. Here's another one, but again, it's from the IDF. So, I mean, everything I'm going to give you is from the IDF because who else would investigate it, right? Video footage of interrogation. Ooh, wait, we might have video footage. Wait a minute. Hold up. According to the captured militants who were apprehended...
You argued this whole time for the military objective, so I assumed that you would have a definitive
I do.
like evidence.
I do.
Evidence.
I just sent 2 different links in the chat. One of them, here, let me read this one. According to captured militants who were apprehended in the vicinity of the Shifa hospital, the facility serves as a hub for Hamas and Islamic jihadist organized operations, which, with an estimate of 600 to 1,000 Hamas operatives allegedly hiding within its walls.
Yeah, my God, that's such bullshit, dude. So you really believe that? 600 to 1,000 Hamasis in the walls of the hospital?
600 to 1,000?
Into the walls of the hospital? What does that
Inside
even
the
mean?
walls of a hospital. Do you know how many people a hospital can hold?
I mean, I doubt 1,000.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the whole operation, how many operation rooms? There's like 6?
Do you know how many
hospital?
in a hospital? Do you know how many different specializations they need? They need rooms for surgeries. They need rooms
per
for
level, I would give you 6 operation rooms per level. That's it.
That's okay. Okay. But again, this has
Maybe
nothing to do with the
there's
argument.
beds. Yeah, there's beds, but like the operation rooms, there's not like 100 of them.
Okay. So. And then Board just said, according to the Gazan Health Ministry officials, the hospital contained 1,500 patients, 1,500 medical workers, and around 15,000 people.
Yeah,
That's from Gaza, by the way. That's from Gaza, by the way.
So how can you make that into a military objective, knowing all those numbers? 15,000 patients, 15 medical workers, 50,000 displaced people, and then you made it into a military objective?
I want to ask you, who made that? Who made it into a military objective?
Israel.
You think they did when they
Claimed
fired?
it.
Who did
Israel
it?
claimed it is
But wait,
military objective.
but wait. If Hamas never fired from it and never used it as interrogation grounds, you do know that it would have had protection under international law, right? You understand that Hamas doing what they
I'm doing
did.
yes right now. So you're arguing for me now?
I'm saying that because of what Hamas did, they made it a military target. You understand that, right? So when you say, oh, Israel attacked it, okay? What you're saying is, why did they attack it? Was it against international law? The law is against you. So you pounded the law, you were wrong. So now you pound the facts. Well, let's see your facts. The facts are wrong. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish, please. You pounded the facts. I'm going to discredit this source. I'm going to discredit this source, which I agree. We shouldn't take them at full account. But previous in the argument, you made a claim that no evidence has supported. And then you're going to pound the table and say, well, do you really believe that? I don't need to believe that. All the evidence is showing my side, and you have nothing to show yours.
All right, man.
Also,
Look,
yep, he just admitted that they killed. Wait, someone just said I admitted they killed 10,000 people. I know. All we were talking about is how many people are in a hospital because he made the claim that less than 100 could be.
No problem. Hey, listen. So this is what it is. So all I did was you're right. I went in, and this is brand new evidence. I've never looked into this. So I actually inspected it with you. I said, let's look at this. What can declare a medical unit into a military objective? We looked at it. It's very rare that happens. When it does happen,
That's not true at all. It happens a lot during war because when you advance in war, you have to take civilians' homes as places to fight from. So that happens a lot, actually. To say that's a rare occurrence that a civilian place gets used.
It happens a lot in empty hospitals and empty schools.
I'm saying it's no. That's happened every time.
Because me and you were imagining a military war zone where there's nobody there. It's like a desert area.
That's not what I'm imagining.
That's how Ukraine did it. They didn't take a hospital filled with men. They didn't take a school filled with people. They just took a school because it's an empty school, and there was nobody there. They already had evacuated the area. Whereas Gaza, they never evacuated the area. They tried to evacuate into the school.
So wait, that is right? There were a lot of people there, as we agreed. 15,000 were there almost. That's crazy. It shouldn't be attacked. What gave Israel the legal right to attack?
I don't think anybody gave Israel legal right.
International law did.
That's what they're trying to talk about in the ICJ court. And ICJ actually confirmed that they do have a case.
They have a case against, isn't this genocide that we're talking about now?
About genocide, about those atrocities they're committing. So I could, you haven't proven it was legal. You haven't proven it was legal. It could be an atrocity, another atrocity.
So usually when people whenever someone comes up with an affirmative claim and someone disrupts that affirmative claim, who is the burden of proof upon to prove that? If I say, wait. If I say I have a source here, and you're like, I don't agree with that source.
Let's go back to this. I want to know your evidence. I want to see your evidence. You just created a military objective out of a place with 10,000 people in it and 1,000 doctors. Tell me what was your evidence to create it as a military objective besides claims from the Israel
and Hamas? Claims from Hamas too. Claims from Hamas.
Is there anything besides hostages talking? As if we are supposed to believe these people.
So there's intelligence agencies, there's third-party investigations, there's testimonies. Do you want to go through each of those?
How many Hamasis exactly were in there? Because you just told me 600 to 1,000. Now, what's the actual confirmed number? That's what I'm asking.
I don't think they know the exact amount. They probably have an estimate. Wait. If I say, hey, that's a pile of sand. Wait. No, if I say that's a pile of sand and you say how many grains of sand are in there and I go, I don't know. You're like, well, it's not. That's not how that works. That is the same. You're saying because I can't say the specific amount.
To make this a military objective, you can't even give me evidence for 3.
Because the number plays no part of the argument.
Not a military objective.
Wait. Can we both agree that the number plays no part in the objective argument?
It has to play a part because that's what proportionality is. It has to do with the numbers.
Good thing we're not arguing proportionality. Good thing we're arguing military target.
No, every international community and every international organization looks at the numbers. That's what they're looking at, so they know what's happening. That's the only thing they can look at.
That's not the only thing. They
The
can't
numbers
even
are extremely
wait.
important.
Do you know they can't even run the proportionality like part of that before they determine it's a military objective? So let's start at step 1 now. It's a military objective, right? Do we agree at least on
Okay.
that?
No, you haven't proved it. You haven't proved it.
Wait, okay.
Like, for
So
example, I'm
my
telling you
testimony-
what's the actual subjective arbitrary number that creates a military objective? Is it 10 Hamasis, and have you proven there were 10? Was it 20 Hamasis? Have you? I want to know, so in the future we don't ever have this problem. So we have a full answer ever for the rest of our eternity. We know the minimum number that creates a military objective, and we know that that's why they were legally allowed to bomb that hospital and kill these.
So when it comes to numbers and laws of war, there is no number at which something becomes illegal. You know that, right? Because imagine if there was a number, right? 40. Then Hamas is only going to put 39 people in a hospital every single time. That's why there isn't a number. There's proportionality. Is it a military objective? You understand that, right? Whenever you say, oh, what number is it? There isn't a number. You can disagree. Listen, I'm going to say this. You can disagree with the law. You can dislike the law. That's fine. But don't act like the law's on your side in this.
So you just agreed with me. It's not a military base because
I never said anything close to that.
They will force it to never become a military base because they'll always reduce the number of the Hamasis in there to never get to that arbitrary maximum.
I don't know where you heard that. No, what I said is the number has no bearing on the argument. The international courts agree with that. You know that, right? Like, we can agree. Let's just make that. Let's just make this.
Proportionality.
Wait. I'm arguing about military objectives. That's what we've been talking about the entire time. Remember, 10 minutes ago we were arguing about.
You argued about proportionality.
Because proportionality is also on my side.
That's the only reason you give for just justification of after October
Nope.
7th.
There's two. There's the fact that they attacked a military objective.
Security.
Yes, but wait, let's go. So the way they determine it, okay, is they determine it's a military objective, then they do proportionality. Do you disagree?
Okay, well, how did they determine it? Show me.
What, military objective?
I just want to know because it's
So,
actually what I
I can
read
show
was
you.
not clear.
I can show you witness testimonies. I can show you videos. I can show you the IDF. I can show you intelligence agencies. I can show you third-party sources. Is that not enough?
All right, really quickly, I just want to hear this guy's video. I'm gonna listen to it, and because me and you, we need to come to an agreement so we can talk about this fact. We were not even agreeing to the facts of the case. So let me just listen to this video really quickly and see what happens.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
No, but I can pull up your stream if you wait. Don't play it yet.
It's one of your videos that you sent me.
Yeah, I know.
I'll just read out loud because it provides
Okay.
the logistics. Okay, let me see. Why did you work from Shifa? Because it provides the logistics,
Wo اشتغلت من شفا؟
meaning everything connected to water, electricity, and computer rooms. And also everything connected to security. Meaning, what does that mean?
It means they used it because it had good resources there.
It provides security. That's it.
Yeah. Why did it? Do you know why it provided security?
That's the
'Cause
video
usually-
you gave me. There's no evidence.
Wait,
You
wait,
didn't
wait.
talk about how many people.
Wait.
Nothing.
The evidence there is that the person speaking is a Hamas military member. You can say he's not. I guess that's what your claim will be, right? And I agree that maybe that is indefinite evidence. So let's move to the next one. Why don't you go look at the other link? And then I'll send another one.
Okay.
And then I'll send another one.
So you have to agree with me. No. You have to agree with me before we move on to the next point that does not map to reality. Al Shifa Hospital was not a military objective. You have no proof it was. We read through the claims that you had, and it seems that there's a number, so you can switch a medical unit to become a military objective. We never reached that number. And
There is no number. There's not a number. Legally, wait. You understand? Legally, there is not a number. This is like a actual. We can't move on until we agree on this. Legally, there isn't a number. We know that, right? We can't move on. You can't. If you think there's a number in your head, we're just going to be misrepresenting each other.
No, there's a number. There has to be a number. Then how the hell are you doing proportionality laws? What does the proportionality law even do then? Does it not count the numbers of lives? Is that not what the proportionality law does? It literally sits there counting the numbers of lives.
So the proportionality means that it's the incidental versus involuntary harm caused to civilian populations during a military attack. It must not be excessive and in retaliation. Did that say can't be over 500? It said excessive.
So does that mean that you have to count the number so you know what's excess?
Yes, that's how they do that. Yes.
Okay, so do you agree with me? The numbers are extremely important, actually. They're not just, and you're trying to make them arbitrary, but they're extremely important.
Nope, that's not what I said. I've not said that it's arbitrary. I agree that it's important. I've never said that it's not. I'm saying that there isn't a definite number as you were trying to claim.
Okay, right now there isn't. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to...
Okay, we can agree. In international law.
Give me evidence so we can start prescribing standards so we know what's too much and what's too little. But you don't even have those numbers. What you gave me is a video of a random dude saying, "Yeah, we like being in the hospital because they have water."
Yeah, that's okay. So that one, do you click the other link as well? One that also has a militant operations. Wait, let's just make this. Let's just fast forward. Every time I show you a Hamas member speaking, you're gonna say it's not Hamas, right? And every time I show you IDF, you're gonna say it's the
Hamas, I believe
IDF.
it's Hamas.
Oh, so you believe that dude was Hamas?
I mean, we'll see. Let me look at the second video.
It's not a video. It's a link.
Who are the people under your responsibility? I have 143 people. He's speaking Arabic. The heads of units and operatives. When did they catch you in Shifa? How long were you staying there? Almost a month, 25 days. How many people were in Shifa? How many people were in Shifa from Hamas? There are several types of Hamas. There's government. I'm referring to the Hamas operatives. Between 600 to 1,000. Are there certain places that belong to Hamas? There are certain places that belong to the medical residency area. They call it the medical residency area in space. An area where there was a group and there were also weapons.
Yeah, by the way, we can fast forward to the end whenever they did do a ground invasion of it and they did find Hamas weapons and combat gear there. But again, it's the IDF, so we can hand wave that.
Here, let's jump.
Do you understand how frustrating it is for me in this argument where whenever I have brought in you sources, or whenever you have brought me sources, we've read those sources together, and then your claim from that source has been wrong. But whenever we read my sources, my claim from the sources seem right, and I stand behind my sources.
Yeah, but do you agree that there's a misinformation warfare right now? Like this
There's
is
there's
part of
always
the war
true,
zone.
of course.
So that's why I can be skeptical. I'm gonna be skeptical until I read 3 or 4 reports saying the same thing. Do you agree?
Was it skeptical when you claimed that Israel definitely did that attack? You said Israel.
Yeah, I assumed there absolutely because of the facts of the matter, because of every single piece of evidence I gave you. I assumed there. Yes, I even told you I was assuming. It's easy to assume there because people are running away from bombardment and then they get bombarded. So who the hell was bombarding them? It was Israel. Anyways, let's move on. Okay, so let's say there is 600 people in the El Shifa hospital. So there's 600 operatives there.
Yep.
Let's say 1,000 operatives.
Okay.
So now we can kill Al Shifa Hospital with all the people in it. We can actually legally, justifiably shoot it down, based on the proportionality law or based on the international humanitarian law.
Wait, do you know how was Al Shifa invaded? Do you know? How was it attacked? Do you know?
Al Shifa?
Yeah, how was that hospital attacked? How did Israel get their hands on it? I can answer it for you.
Go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, okay. They sent in special forces. So do you agree with how they did it? Because your claim this entire time has been sent in special forces.
The video that we did. So is Al Shifa the video that we saw?
Which one? The dude, yeah.
With the 2 people, like a woman, hijabi, she takes off her hijab, they start shooting? Or is that something else?
Yeah, I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But agreed that, well, not agreed, this is just factual, that Israel staged an invasion, a boots on the ground invasion. They did a raid.
Yeah, okay, so I agree with the special ops, yeah, but I don't agree with the bombardment. Look, I agree with special ops because they reduced the casualties.
Wait. So were they okay to do that?
That's the right way to do it. Huh? If you want to go into Hamas, yeah, bring your special ops, do one-on-one. Why are you bringing the civilians into this case?
So then why have you been fighting with me that this wasn't a military target? They didn't have the right to attack it. That's what we've been arguing about the last...
Because there's civilians in there, and you're trying to say because you didn't even prove me evidence. Finally, when you showed me the evidence, I'm like, okay, 1,000, maybe they have an operation. But even then, I mean, I still need to read more reports. But you see what I mean? You see where I'm coming from? I mean, you're not there's no justification to go into the hospital. You have to give me the justification.
The 600 to 1,000 militants wasn't enough justification?
All right, and do you agree with me that October 7, you said 1,200, 1,400, and the numbers keep going down? So do you agree with me those numbers might keep going down too, the Hamasi operatives? Do you agree with me?
Do I think that a Act of David statement will go down? No, because the statement's already been made.
Yeah, but do you believe that the Hamasi operatives numbers is going to start getting reduced, maybe down to 100?
It could, but that wouldn't change the justification because at the time the information they had was that it was 600 to 1,000. Hindsight doesn't help in war. Hindsight can't be used as unjustification. You can't unjustify an attack because of hindsight.
So why did Israel, knowing that there's Hamasis in there, go in with their boots, special ops, instead of bombing the building? Tell me, if it's a military objective, according to you, according to international law, why didn't they just bomb the building, knowing that they're now? Because according to you, if there's a terrorist in there, you can make it a military objective. So why didn't they just create a conflict zone and military objective in the hospital? Why were they supposed to send special ops and try to reduce the casualties as much as possible?
So you're right? Why?
If there's a Hamasi in there, you can bomb the whole thing.
Wait, you're right. You're exactly right. If Hamas is in there, they can bomb the hell out of it, right? They can. They legally have the right to do so. So why did they?
Can.
They can. No, wait. No, they can. Every investigation, if you find a source that says they couldn't, I mean, I'll look into it. But as you say, maybe I'll do more research,
Every
right?
source I'm looking at says you have to reduce the casualties.
Reduce.
Of civilians. And we knew that and they know that bombarding them is the most amount of casualties they can create. So
there could be
they
more.
have to reduce the
Nuking.
civilians by sending another operation, which is the special ops. That's the best way. That's the only other way.
There are many different ways you could do it that are significantly worse. You could use a lot of different things. You could use gas weapons,
bomb.
nukes, gas weapons. What about gas? You know it illegal?
No, they don't do that because the air can be traveled to their area. That's why they don't use gas. It's actually a very selfish reason, not because they want to reduce casualties.
So then why don't they just bomb everything at once? Why don't they just get rid of it all at once?
I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I see over 100 bombs being dropped every single day. I feel like they're dropping all their bomb arsenals.
It's weird how they have enough bombs to drop 100 a day, but yet they don't drop like 10,000 a day and all in one day. It's almost like they're finding military targets to attack. But anyway, we're moving on. Sorry, we got off topic there. Isn't it interesting how whenever you brought it up, it was so different from the argument? And then do you notice, at least this doesn't show anything. This doesn't prove my side. This doesn't prove your side. Have you noticed that anytime you bring me a source, I'm entering it in good faith and I am saying, let's read it. And then anytime I bring up a source, you hand waved it.
Bro, I actually took the source. I told you.
After I sent you 3.
Let's say there's 1,000 in there. Why did Israel not bomb the hospital?
Okay.
Is that proof that you cannot bomb hospitals? That even if it's a military objective, you still have to reduce the casualties as much as possible?
I think militaries have the moral right to, but legally, no. If they wanted to bomb it, they could have. Do you know why they didn't? Because maybe they don't want to kill innocent Palestinians. That might be crazy. Isn't that weird? Because on your side, Israel is an army that is conducting warfare unlawfully, right? So if they could kill, with the goal of killing Palestinians. So on your side, they want to kill Palestinians and that's their goal. Why wouldn't they bomb it? That completely doesn't help your argument at all. Well, it does help mine. Have you noticed that?
No, actually, it helps my argument a lot because if you're telling me it's a military objective, it's been guaranteed to be a military objective, we've studied it for a long time, and you're telling me the norm is to drop bombs and to reduce, what is it called, soldier casualties, then they would have just dropped the bombs and ended that.
You're right.
Instead, they recognize there's too many humans' lives in there.
You're right.
This is a breach of international law.
No, it's not a breach though. They recognized it.
They wouldn't be justified to creating a military objective out of this, and so they went after them.
If you can find one source that backs that argument right there, I would agree. But you'll never find a source that says they didn't have the international.
You give me a reason why they didn't bomb them. Instead, they spent special law.
Because maybe Israel isn't in the objective of killing 1,000 Palestinians when they don't have to.
Maybe they knew they couldn't justify bombing a hospital with.
Yet, not a single source backs that, but every source will back mine.
Was 1,000 Hamas. Yeah, but you just showed me the proportionality law, which makes it legal to bomb a hospital, make a hospital into a war zone. In a conflict zone and kill anybody in it, then you cannot explain why the hell did they send the special ops, which is my argument from the beginning.
I've said it.
To reduce casualties, you have to send in special ops because what you're doing is you're fighting a war between countries, so you cannot hurt the civilians. You have to hurt the actual military bases, and that's what Hamas is doing. I'm seeing them do that. But then when you see IDF side, they're killing everybody. That's literally my argument. You gave it to me. They have no way to justify killing everybody in the hospital, so they had to send in special ops, even though they knew there was 1,000 terrorists in there.
I'm gonna give you a challenge then, right now. Wait, I'm gonna give you a challenge right now. Can you find a single source to back that up?
Okay, you tell me why didn't they bomb?
I'll give you a source. I'll give you a source. Wait, if I give you a source, will you give me one? Alright, okay. Better start looking. Okay, so Israel stated that they bombed Hamas, arguing that it was used as a command center and concealed weapons and fighters in tunnels there. There's my source.
What does it say?
That Israel bombed it because they declared that it was a military organization, arguing that Hamas used it as a command center and concealed weapons and fighters in underground tunnels there. That's a source. I found a source. I'm just asking you to do the same. That they did it because they knew it would be illegal. That's what I'm asking. You need to find something that says Israel did a ground invasion because they knew that if they didn't, it would be illegal.
Okay, was Israel's attack on Al-Shifa hospital justified? Israel has so far offered little evidence that it was. More may yet to turn up. The laws of war gave special protections to hospitals. They lose that protection if they were used as harmful acts. Israel has long claimed that Al-Shifa hospital, the largest in the Gaza Strip, served as a key command center. So far, there's little evidence of its being a major military facility. Only
doesn't matter if it's major. Just has to be a military objective. Doesn't matter how major the military objective is. Also, do you notice how even that one backed me? Israel has provided evidence. Why? It might be little. Hamas has not. They didn't use a single. Do you think if they did have evidence to the contrary, they would have used it? The answer is yes, but they didn't. I'm asking you to find a single source. We can keep looking. I'll even help you. We'll look for one. Was it illegal when Israel attacked Al-Shifa? How international law views military actions at a hospital. That isn't exact, but let's see if it finds it. Ah, fucking paywall. Shout out New York Times. They suck.
Yeah, that's what I've been finding. A bunch of paywall. It's frustrating.
So, what I see here, but the evidence provided by the Israeli government falls short of showing that it was. But what was shown was rooms connected to a tunnel network. Was shown was what? Military objectives, as sources say that there was weapons and concealed armaments and armor and military personnel there. So it's just, yeah, it's Israel saying that.
Okay, based on the information, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories, Bethlehem, it says Al-Shifa is the largest medical facility in the Gaza Strip.
True.
In addition to thousands of sick and injured people and medical staff, the hospital is currently sheltering tens of thousands of Gazans who fled their homes, fearing Israeli airstrikes and heeding military warnings. According to Israel, Hamas has chosen to set up a military base underneath the hospital. If that is the case, Hamas is committing a war crime that is morally reprehensible and absolutely prohibited under international humanitarian law.
Yep.
But even if they are, there is a military facility. Even if there is a military facility operating under the hospital, this does not allow Israel to bomb the site. Such an attack would result in unbearable, horrifying harm to civilians and constitute a war crime, violating the provisions of international humanitarian law that Israel has repeatedly declared its commitment to uphold. Literally the same international humanitarian law we just read, me and you.
You skipped a sentence. You skipped a sentence.
According to these provisions, Israel must distinguish between civilians and combatants and refrain from attacks that would cause such widespread harm to civilians. This is certainly true of the sick, the injured, and other vulnerable groups. This principle is not merely a legal construct, but a basic moral tenet.
So you understand everything you just said there was part of my argument, right?
Everything I said there is saying that even though you're right in the international humanitarian law, you can
attack
military zones. You cannot just abruptly bombard into these military zones, knowing that you're going to harm civilians and thousands of civilians. So even though you're right, there's a proportionality law. This is why the numbers actually matter.
Here, wait. Are you using the Washington Post one?
There's a number where it stops.
There still isn't. There's no exact number.
That's why there's a genocide case right now with the ICJ.
But
there's a
no
number
exact
where
number.
The number becomes too much.
There's no exact number. Also, are you using the Washington Post source for that?
But we will make it.
Are you using the Washington Post for one for that? Which source are you using?
I'm using Al-Shifa, Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories. The Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories.
All right, can you put your link in your chat? Because I want to see what they declared for this. Thank you. Oh, it says also, by the way, the title is They Must Not Bomb It. Good thing.
They must not bomb.
Good thing they didn't absolutely obliterate it with a bomb and instead,
Look, the special ops, I don't care about the special ops. The special ops doesn't show me that they killed civilians. The bombs is what kills civilians. Special ops is, That's fine. If you want to go in, get the Hamasis and leave, that's fine. But if they're sitting there killing civilians, kicking them out of the hospital, putting them in harm's way, I don't agree with that. And bombarding them, I don't agree with that. But special ops, I don't care about.
Also, you understand
I
this
actually,
source.
that's my whole argument. I keep telling you from the beginning. I told you, let's say there are 2 war zones and there are 2 fighters. You still cannot justify the 30,000 casualties. You actually
Again, the number doesn't matter. That's what I've said. There's nothing. If you
The number
again,
matters. That's why
also
there's
by the
a
way,
ICJ case
that
right
source does not mention once that it would be illegal under international law. It just says that it violates the provisions, and then what it says it violates is proportionality, which it didn't violate proportionality. Oh, listen, actually, I'll read their quote. Wait. I'll read it. I'll read what they stated.
Of international humanitarian
Wait.
law that Israel has repeatedly
This
declared.
is what it's saying Israel didn't do. According to these provisions, Israel must distinguish between civilians and combatants. Why do you think they're unable to do that? Because of Hamas.
Yeah,
You understand that
because
your
when
own
you bomb-
source.
When you drop a
No,
bomb,
they did a ground invasion, so that doesn't work.
when you drop a bomb on a hospital, you cannot pick and choose who's gonna die.
True, but when you do a ground invasion, you can kind of determine who's a militant and who's a civilian, but you can if
Fine,
they're all
so-
wearing civilian
so
clothing,
this
which
is an
Hamas does do.
argument against bombing. This is not an argument against military.
The invasion. Yes, it's not against the attacking
I've
it.
been telling you, if you want to do special ops, do it. You're losing. You're losing when you do special ops, anyways. And then you still create casualties, but at least you're not murdering people from the sky. At least you're coming in, you're getting slapped in the face and walking back home empty-handed. I never argued against military invasions in the special ops position. I agreed with you. I said Hamas was the enemy that beat you. You still, even if I give you everything, you still can't justify 30,000 kills. You still can't. There's no humanitarian law in the world that can give you that right.
True.
I've even
Good thing
told
there's no
you
humanitarian
the
law
best
that
way
states
to
that
do it-
either.
The best way to do it is special ops, and you still cannot do it. And you actually agreed with me, but for some reason you still are trying to justify bombing, even though every time I give you a piece of evidence tells you cannot bomb. If you know there's civilians, you cannot bomb. Then you come back to the
That's not
proportionality
true.
law. Then I expose the proportionality law to you to be.
That's not true either.
To be not exactly what you were describing.
It's exactly
To
what I
be
described.
A misrepresentation from you that you know what I mean. Like if there's 10 Hamasis in there and 1 civilian, of course you can bomb that. But usually that's never the case. Okay, there's usually 1 Hamasi in there and then 10 civilians. So you can never use that proportionality agreement. So you have to bring in the special ops, and you're not doing that. So you're hurting people. You're putting them at risk.
So-
even the Israeli Information Center agrees with me. You cannot bomb random hospitals, even if you know there's a million military bases inside.
That's
of them.
not true at all. What it said was the law. I'll even read this. If you disagree with what they stated, that's weird because it's your source. The law that Israel broke was that it did not distinguish between civilians and combatants. It's in the second paragraph. It must distinguish between civilians and combatants. Do you know why it can't do that? It's not Israel wanting to kill civilians. They can't because Hamas is committing a war crime of not identifying.
No. The whole argument for this article is Israel must not bomb a Shifa hospital
Because
So
it would
you
violate. Wait.
you can
Because it would
exasperate from
violate.
that. No, yeah, because you can exasperate from that it's because they cannot single the terrorists from the civilians. That's why. So the only way proportional to do this is a special ops operation, which is why I actually agree with you when it comes to the special ops. I don't agree
not
with
the
you when
only
it comes
way.
to bombing hospitals. Yeah, that's
Okay,
literally
wait.
what the
Okay.
article is saying. It's on my
I'll-
side. You cannot bomb it because you cannot single between the terrorists and the civilians, but it doesn't say anything about special ops.
You're right. It doesn't. And I'll say, I'll admit I'm wrong right now. If you can find a single law saying when you legally have to use special ops, is there a single law?
Yes, all the laws are saying you have to reduce. You're forced to reduce your civilian lives. So if you know you're gonna there's 10,000 people in a building, you cannot drop a bomb on that building. You have to bring in the special ops and reduce casualties as much as possible.
You added that in there. It never says added though.
Let me ask you this: if there's 5 terrorists and 5 civilians, what do you do in that building?
Whatever you are legally allowed to
Based on your
do.
proportionality laws, based on your proportionality laws, what's the best way to do this to solve this issue?
Whatever is the best way in that situation. It's gonna be
Okay,
case by
you tell me what's
case.
the best way.
In a random building, I don't know. It's a case by case. Is it alone? Is it you? What is the objective?
5 by 5. 5 terrorists, 5 Hamasi. Go ahead. You are so smart with this
Is it-
proportionality thing. Give it to me. Give me the right answer. Right.
Are they using it for military purposes?
They're using it for military. There's
Okay.
5 Hamasi.
Then
5
under
civilians.
international law, it would be a target and could be attacked.
Okay, under international law, it could be a target. Can it be
Yep.
attacked though?
Yes.
Even though knowing that you're putting civilians at risk using bombs.
Yes.
Do you not use the slightest? Do you not use the safest measure of attack, or do you just belligerently attack?
You go with the route of saying, hey, is this a military objective? Is it being used for military purposes? And then if it is, it loses the protection. You understand when something loses protection, you are able to attack it.
All right. I have another question for you. Let's say there's 1 Hamasi and 5 civilians.
It's gonna be the same question. It doesn't. We talked about this earlier. The numbers don't matter. The number doesn't matter when it comes to legality of the case.
Wow, the numbers don't matter.
Okay,
so
wait.
The civilians in there because it became a military base.
I'll say it again. I will admit I'm wrong in this entire debate. I will hand you the win.
Losing one guy.
I will hand you the win on a silver platter. Can you find a single law that states that there's a definite number? The answer is no, you can't, because that's wrong.
Yeah, but every law in the book says you have to reduce the casualty. So yeah, it's arbitrary to you, but everyone in the world knows it has to not exceed 100.
Not arbitrary.
It has to not exceed 150. It's easy to make those numbers happen. Why the hell are you touting the proportionality law if you can't even come up, if you don't even have a specific number? Then your whole proportionality law doesn't make sense.
It does, because there is no number in proportionality.
Then it makes no sense. It's just arbitrary. It's whatever you feel like.
I'll give you the win if you can prove that.
It could be 1 terrorist and 30,000 civilians, and you would still bomb the 30,000 civilians, believing that it's because there's no actual law in the book that says I should send in my special ops.
Again, I'll admit I'm wrong right now, and I'll even say you won. That will be the thumbnail and the title. Do you have a single law to back you up? No.
Yeah, the international human rights law
has a number?
says you have to reduce.
No number though. That's not a number.
From the proportionality law.
No number though. I asked you to find a number. I asked you for a number. A definite number. Is there a single case where you can find a definite number? That's what I'm asking you for, because that's what your case is. The answer is no.
I agreed with you. Right now it's arbitrary, but that's why me and you should.
It's not arbitrary. It's the law. We're arguing if they're handling themselves legally. We're gonna look at what the law says.
Look, but the law actually cares about these numbers. Does
Again,
it not?
I will admit I'm wrong. If you can find a single
every specific case, does it not look at the numbers? What is it looking at?
It's looking at the proportionality.
Okay, but okay, when you say proportionality, that looks to me that's math to me, right or wrong? That's 1 + 1 = 2. We do the proportionality equation.
I think,
right?
Yeah, I think you're misconstruing definite with proportionality. What you're claiming is that there is a certain number in which it would become illegal or wrong. That is not the case. There is a proportionality, which means they're going to look at how many things are they getting out of one side and the other. How many civilians are dying?
There is a number that makes it wrong. It's 1.
There's not. I mean, you can say that. You can say that, but hey, if you legally have any,
well, every murder case it takes a 1. It's a number of 1. Every international case in the world can start with a number of 1.
It can. It can also start with 100. There's not a definite number. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but 1 is enough.
So is 100. There's no definite. Yeah. You're trying to argue there's a definite. Remember, that's what you've been saying.
But no. I'm trying to argue that there's a. Sure, there's a number. Yeah, sure.
There isn't.
There's a number.
There isn't a definite. It could be. It could also be 1,000. It could also be 100. It could also be 1,000,000. It could also be 1,000,000,000. There's no definite number.
Can you agree with me? It's 1. Like 1 Hamasi and 10 terrorists. What do you do in that case?
What do you mean 1 Hamasi and 10 terrorists? Do you mean
there's one Hamasi in the building, and then there's there's 1 Hamasi in the building and 10 civilians living in that building. You've confirmed he's there, and you confirmed he has an RPG. What do you do to that building? Do you send in special ops? Or do you? I'm gonna prove to you that the numbers matter, because at some point the number is gonna force you to change your decision making, and your choices.
Wait,
I'm gonna prove it to you. So
we can agree. Wait, we can agree right here. Let's make an agreement. The number does matter, but there's not a definite number in which it has to matter.
I agree with you. There's no definite number today in the criminal justice court.
Legally there's no number. Like I said, and do we agree that hindsight also plays no bearing on legality? If something's legal when you did it, it was legal. Something was illegal when you did it, it was illegal. Because you knew that you were violating that law. That's how the law works. That's why there are still people, actually I think he pardoned everyone, but there were people in states where marijuana was legal that were still in jail. It's fucked up.
Yeah, but do you agree with me that whatever you did in the past, even though now in the future it's wrong, and you thought it was good, that still means you were wrong in the past? For example, slavery, you thought was good, now it's wrong. Turns out you were wrong the whole time. Do you agree with me on that point?
I mean, morally, but good thing we're not arguing morals.
In the future, you could be totally wrong.
That's how the world works. Yeah, people can be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So when you use the subjective opinion on arbitrary number, you're always going to be wrong. That's why we have to, me and you, set a standard, and I'm trying to make it happen in front of you.
I can pinpoint why this doesn't work. Okay, let's say There is a
No,
war
it
going
actually
on.
does
No,
work.
no, no,
I'm
no,
gonna
no, no,
prove
wait.
it to you.
Follow
1 to
my
10, 1 to
hypothetical.
10.
Follow my
1 to 10
hypothetical.
by 1 to 100.
1 second. Let me do mine first. In a war, let's say there's a war between 100 people, okay, on each side, okay, and the people and the civilians go in, or sorry, the militants of one side go in and kill 1,000 civilians and 1 military person. Was that wrong?
So go ahead, say that again. I have such a hard time with these examples.
I know,
Okay, so there's
hypotheticals.
1,000 civilians.
Okay, in a situation in which a military attacks a military target and 10 civilians die, is that wrong?
Sure, that's wrong. Yeah.
That's okay. If they attack 1 civilian in a military target, is that wrong?
Yeah, sure. Hurting 1 civilian was wrong. Yes.
Is 100 wrong?
Absolutely.
Is 1,000 wrong?
Yeah, worse.
Okay, is any number wrong?
Absolutely. Any number
Okay.
is wrong.
So you understand that with that argument, what you're saying is that the number doesn't matter. You understand that, right? You just made my argument.
I
You
mean,
understand
that's
that,
what you're
right?
saying.
No,
What
no, no,
I'm
no,
saying
no,
is
no.
the
Your
number-
argument has been that there's a definite
Okay,
number.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. The number doesn't matter. Sure.
Okay, there we go. Okay, and then I did one more thing because we kind of very much swayed it off of.
Yeah, we're away. Yeah, we're far away.
So I'll reel it back in. My main claim is not that they are handling themselves correctly. I could argue that. I don't care to. I could argue that they have justification for every attack they've done. I don't believe that. My justification is that I think that when you look at it, that the intent is not met because there is a very obvious intent of national security. Do we agree on that, or should we dive into that?
But then you have to agree as well that what Hamas did was justified then, because it was for their security.
When Hamas, October 7th?
Did the October 7, yeah. You have to agree then that that's was for security. Because you cannot pick and choose.
Whenever they went out, so when one side, well, you see the difference between aggressor and response, right?
Exactly. So to you, the aggressor is Gaza, and the responder, the defender is Israel, right?
Okay,
That's what you're claiming?
okay, sure.
So how can you say that there's a big problem that October 7 was a big deal for you
Okay.
if your response to that was to do 30,000 casualties? How can you say that
Here,
that's a big deal?
I'll
to
make
you
it
then?
easy. I'll make it
If-
easy.
that means you don't even care about 30,000.
Again, we both agreed. The number doesn't matter. You agreed with me. That number isn't, there's no definite number in which I know it's wrong, right? I look at why the numbers have happened. Okay, that's the better way. But let's not get off track, okay? Let's say I bite the bullet and I say that Hamas was justified during October 7th. Do we agree then that Israel is acting out of security interest of defending themselves?
No, because you could still not justify killing the civilians. Because if Hamas
Wait.
told me for our security we had to go kill civilians, I'll be like, go fuck yourself, Hamas. You can go fuck yourself and put yourself in the hole. Yeah.
So wait, do you tell them to go
you're
fuck themselves when they bomb Israel?
Yeah, if they're
They
they're
are,
bombing
every day.
Israel, they're only targeting civilians and they don't target any.
They're targeting cities in
military
Israel.
bases or any military personnel, and it's only civilian. I'll tell them to go fuck themselves.
Okay, so you think that whenever, every single day when Hamas is shooting these rockets into Israel, it's wrong?
I believe they're attacking settlers. I believe they're attacking military bases. I believe they're targeting what they're target. Some of them are dummy and they know they're not going to land anyway. So they
That's
just
not
shoot
what
them, but
dummy
most of
dummy
the
means.
time
There's no
they're targeting-
navigation.
They're targeting settlements. They're targeting occupied areas. They're talking. I mean, every single Palestinian area right now is occupied. So if they shoot into their own area, is it shooting into Israel or shooting into Palestine? Like, let's say Gaza shoots into West Bank. Are they shooting into Israel or shooting into West Bank?
I don't think where proportionality border wise they're hitting. I think it's about where they're hitting civilian wise. But I'm gonna say so do you think that when they bomb Israel it's okay?
Look, because I believe when they bomb Israel, they're not aiming on civilians. They're not aiming on people's
They're not
houses,
aiming at
they're
all.
on military bases.
We've
on
seen
settler
this.
communities.
They're not aiming
They're
at all
on
though.
settler communities.
We've
Show
seen
me
this.
reports of-
We agreed
of
on
this,
this. We've agreed on this in the past. They used dummy bombs. Wait, even the report that you read earlier stated that the bomb that they used had no navigation, was a dummy bomb, and that's why they think it was from them because they use dummy bombs like that. Remember that?
So yeah, they talk about misfiring munition because it looked like a misfired munition.
It
to
looked
them.
like a
And
missile that
that's
was
not
commonly
misfired all the
used.
time.
They said
Hamas
it.
misfires. That was a misfiring. That wasn't because it was dummy or anything. It was just a
True.
misfired,
But the reason they
rocket. If it was a Hamasi rocket, it was misfired. It wasn't because it was dummy.
The good
They
news
don't
is,
just shoot it.
but the reason they thought it was Hamas was because the bomb that they think was used is commonly used by Hamas, and the bomb that they think was used was a
That's
dummy bomb
actually
with no
not accurate.
navigation.
That's actually not. That's a misrepresentation of the report. I read the report. They never even looked at the munition. They actually have no evidence that the munition even exists. They just said it appeared to be Hamasi, but they have no investigation on the munition. They never looked at the munition. They never sent you a picture of the munition. There's nothing.
You understand?
And the Hamas or the Palestinian side says there's no way it's us.
You understand that when it comes to like murder trials, we arrest people for murder even if we don't have a direct video of them murdering people, right? Because
Yeah,
we
but
can.
do you agree with me? Sometimes some cases can be false
OJ, no,
accusations and false charges.
of course.
So it's possible that this is why we need to wait. We can't take the first report immediately at face value. We have to actually read, and then we actually have to look into the numbers, and we have to start talking about the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter is there's people inside the hospital. Even if the terrorists take over the hospital, you still have a right. The people have a right over you. You still have to make sure, especially if you're the occupying force and you're the one creating this military operation forward, you have to be the one to make sure that these people are safe. For example, let's say a cop goes and arrests you, puts you in a cop car, and then a train runs over you because he was parked in the rail track, which is something
Negligence.
that actually happened.
Yep, I know what you're
So
talking about.
yeah, so exactly. So is it no fault of the police officer because you were committing a crime and he had to make sure he was safe and secure, or does he still have you still have rights over you still have rights over him, or you still have rights on him, or he still has rights over you, making sure you're safe, making sure you're secure, making sure because he's under your jurisdiction. So when you're the occupying force, when you're the one coming in, you have to make sure everybody else is safe because you are the occupier. You are the one that's has the guns. You are the one that has the force. So that's my arguments from the beginning. I've been told from the beginning, from the first moment of this argument, I've been telling you can justify murdering 30,000. And if you can, then how can you justify that because of October 7? Because if October 7 was so horrific because it was 1,000 casualties, what about 30,000 casualties? That has to be the most horrific thing you've ever seen.
Good thing I stated that the numbers don't matter. It's more of the intention behind the numbers. But also, wait. We're gonna get off topic if we go down that thought tree again. Okay, we're gonna go back to the hospital and the all thing. Do we agree though that if someone attacks you in the past, are you correct in thinking they may attack you again? Especially if they're hostile to you.
Sure, yeah. You stay away from them.
So
whatever people tell you, you learn.
Is it wrong, or is it at least understandable that Israel could have the thinking that Hamas wants to attack them before October 7th, even before there was that big attack? Remember, my missiles are still.
Is it wrong for Israel to think Hamas wants to attack?
Is it understandable? Is it understandable for Israel to think that Hamas wants to attack them?
Can I ask you a question before I answer?
Yeah, of course.
Is Israel illegally occupying Gaza and the West Bank?
I mean, that's a whole court case of itself, but most likely, yes. I'll give you that. Okay,
That's right.
Okay.
It's internationally recognized by every international organization.
Yeah, except for Russian Kiev, what's happening now, but yeah.
Wait, Russia, Kiev?
Basically, Russia, every time Russia takes land, you don't see the UN being like, that's wrong. Because if they said that was wrong, they would have to actually go against Russia, and no one wants to go against Russia because they would drown them in the economy. But that's off topic as well.
Well, I actually disagree with you because, for example, from 1948 to 1967, all that land that was acquired, even though it had nothing to do with the partition, the UN said nothing about it. They actually immediately gave it to Israel, and they recognize it as Israeli territory. And actually, Israel completely recognizes the illegal occupation, even in Julan Heights, is theirs. When they draw their map, they draw Israel as a full picture with Gaza and the Julan Heights. The only difference is the international community cannot recognize those three spots. That's it. But they actually recognize every single territory they've ever gained before the 1967 Six-Day War, right?
Sure, but again, I'm more talking about, we kind of got off topic there. Is it okay for them to see the danger that could happen from Palestine, even if they're pressing them?
I'm just showing you proof that they justify it to themselves. They can justify it to themselves.
So
but international organizations, they did not, just like they did with Russia, they helped Israel. Okay, so don't act like they only did it with Russia. That's all my point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not getting into Russia.
Yeah. Let's go back to Hamas now. So
No, wait, because this is the central point of my claim. So let's just to finish this off. So you do agree that Israel does have a sense of threat when it comes to Palestine and Hamas, right?
Do I agree that Israel has a sense of threat when it comes to
a justifiable sense of threat? By the way, let's throw that.
I'll give it to you. Yeah, I'll give it to you. Justifiable. Does that mean you go after the civilians?
You understand that because of that, then it's not genocide, right? I mean, sorry, apartheid, right? Because the part of apartheid, the Doralis Specialis, the most important part is the intent of making a racial majority. That's not their intent. Their intent is safety. as you just
That's
agreed.
actually not. That's actually not true because let's look at the West Bank. You were mentioning about the West Bank. Let's stay away from Gaza for a
Wait,
second.
wait.
We see the exact same treatment over there with the exact same laws. Settler colonialism is on the rise there.
Different
taking
laws.
over. There's checkpoint. Yeah, there's checkpoints. They are exactly classified as the Gaza citizens, third-class citizens, exactly from the other territories, Arabs from the other territories. They have the same exact declarations, everything, and it's actually the same, and it has no Hamas there. So what's the justification there to occupy that land? There's no security risk there.
So, do you think that there's a connection between the fact that there isn't a security risk and that there's way less restrictions on that area?
Actually, I don't believe the West Bank has less restriction. I believe that Jerusalem maybe has less restriction, but I believe the West Bank is bordered up. There are, yeah, there's almost similar checkpoints everywhere. There's crossings for their materials. It's very similar.
I wrote down what you just said because I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to like derail it, but I do want to go back to what I was saying because we got off again. So, but yeah, under international law, apartheid has to be committed with the intent of creating a racial majority. And you agree with me though that it's reasonable to assume that there is a security threat that could also be their intent. So by that logic,
you cannot do that in West Bank.
but I'm just arguing that we agree though, right? That it can't be apartheid then because there is an actual security threat that they could have. Also, the apartheid claim isn't against the Gaza Strip; it is against Palestine as a whole. So
what security threat? You're talking about security threat in the lands they occupy illegally?
I'm just saying what we both agreed on.
Because the security threat's not from Egypt. It's not.
I mean, it has been in the past, but yeah, true. Wait,
why isn't?
Wait, yeah, but how did that end? Why isn't there a security? Where did that peace agreement come from?
Because Egypt was piece of shit, traitorous Egypt.
And lost the war. Isn't it weird?
Yeah, of course we lost the war because Egypt was traitorous. They took the Rafah or whatever it was, Sinai, and then they.
Yeah, Israel took all of the Sinai very quickly because they destroyed all of their air force.
Yeah, they fucked us. Fuck them. Fuck the Egyptians. We Syrians were ready to die for Palestine. They fucked us just for their land back, and no Syrian trusts the Egyptian. But anyways, moving back to this point, it's illegally occupying the territory that Hamas is supposedly the authority over. And it's also illegally occupying the territory that supposedly the West Bank, which is thriving, according to you, is living in.
I never said anything close to that. Well, let's be clear about that.
No, but let's. So they have a security concern from the people they're occupying. Of course they do, because they're military occupation. They're a military threat to the people. So the people are retaliating. So do you believe the international community does not allow, for example, Gaza to retaliate? And do you believe that they actually instead give the right for Israel? Like, we're actually completely mincing and completely, we got everything upside down. What happens, the international community actually recognizes the right for Hamas to defend itself, but it actually doesn't recognize the rights of Israel to occupy Gaza and West Bank.
So, one, Israel has never had a UN or any international place tell them to give back the land as of today. I think any actual thing signed in the last, like, maybe 100, maybe there could have been, like, in the past that I don't know about, okay? But before, you said, do they have the right to retaliate? They actually do have the right to retaliate. The UN agrees on that. In fact, they gave them a set of laws to abide by, and they haven't. So they lost the right to fight legally when they broke the laws that they obviously have broken, when they hide in civilian territories. And then moving on, we can both agree here. If you agree that there is an actual security risk, I will even say there's justifiable reasoning to think that it's an illegal occupation.
Really?
Yes, because what that would mean is it is possible that it is being illegally occupied. I've never argued against that. What I'm saying though is it's definitely not an apartheid. It can't be an apartheid if there's a security intent.
It is an apartheid because it's. I'll give you my argument, and then you can deal with it.
Okay.
So this is it. They are a system of governance, and the same people that govern the Israeli territory is the same people that govern the Gaza and the West Bank and the Jerusalem territories. And actually, when they draw their lines, they draw those guys in with them as part of them. So first of all, they actually believe they own all that territory. First of all, one. Second one is they force these Arabs to identify as second and third class citizens based on their zoning where they were living, And those, because they are the governing state, you have to register with that governing state. And once you register with that governing state, those are your rights. They're given to you by that state. And who's the state? It's the occupying state. You're right, there is some authorities, but they're called authorities because they actually have no authority. They're Palestinian authorities. They actually have no authority. Whatever Israel declines or accepts is what Palestinian Authority declines and accepts. They have no power over that. So how can an authority or like, for example, let's say the Palestinian government, how can they be under the will of the Israeli government and still be its own state and has to be able to provide its own rights for its own people? It can't. It's following the Israeli government's laws. So they're behind. They're basically stuck with whatever Israel designates them as, and they've designated them as second-class citizens. Thirdly, the laws in the institutions are extremely segregative. They don't allow mixed marriages. They prohibit right of return for a Palestinian, so he can never come back to Gaza. But any Israeli, any Jewish citizen in any country can come and live in Israel anytime they want, as long as they promise that they can settle and a couple of laws apply to them. Completely unjustified rulings. They create two-tiered systems. Even their judicial systems are two-tiered. There's laws that are created for the Palestinians. The laws are created for the Israeli Jews, and basically for the Arabs and the Jews, there are two different laws and permits, and it's rights to work in every way possible. So basically, the argument is you're going to have to try to say that Israel does not govern Hamas, but you can't. They're illegally occupying.
I'm not making that argument.
They're illegally occupying it. It's recognized by the international community that's illegally occupying it, and every couple of years they take more lands. How can you justify that? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not at all. I'm not here to argue that they are not the authority. That's not any part of my argument, actually. Also, when you said that they don't recognize inter-marriage relationships, they actually do recognize them. They just don't give them. They just don't do them themselves. If you look into that law, they actually do recognize marriages from other countries. It's actually a common tradition where people will go to Cyprus if they want to get married inside of Israel, and they'll come back to Israel, and it will be recognized.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're an Israeli citizen, you want to marry a Muslim, you have to leave the country, go get married in Cyprus, come back, and then you cannot live with your Muslim husband or whatever because he lives in a different zone than you.
It recognizes the marriage. It just doesn't.
They don't give them rights. They don't give them the permits.
They recognize the marriage. They are married in Israel.
They only recognize it if you married outside the country. They don't recognize any marriages happening inside their country. Interfaith.
You're very religious when it comes to this. Is it okay if a Islamic mosque, if a Islamic mosque denied? Wait. I'm sorry, I'm so uninformed when it comes to Islam. Do marriages happen in mosques?
I'll tell you what it is. Imagine in Dubai, no Christians can get married. That's what it is.
I'm just saying, where do people get married in Islam?
And a Jew cannot get married, or like basically that. Like, can you imagine that? That's what they're trying to tell.
Where do people get married in Islam? Before I make my hypothetical, I don't know if it's church.
In Islam, they go to the church, the mosque.
Mosque. I was about to say, I didn't know if it was mosque or church. Thank you. So if a gay couple went to a mosque and a Islamic leader denied them the right to get married in their mosque, is that okay?
Yeah, but that's not the same.
That is the exact same.
It's not the same actually at all because there's, first of all, 100% I don't think Israel recognizes gay marriage, first of all.
Never made that argument. I'm just saying that people have the right to deny marriages in their...
They're even worse than me because they don't recognize gay marriage and they don't recognize interfaith marriage, whereas in any other country, they will recognize interfaith marriage.
They recognize, they just don't do the marriage itself. That is what the law states.
They recognize
the marriage.
Interfaith gay sex marriage.
I don't know if they do gay, they do interfaith. And you brought up the law as saying they don't. I can look it up though. Does Israel... Just look up, does Israel recognize mixed marriages? You'll find it. It'll be the first thing. Because your claim was that they don't recognize them and they can't even get married. They can.
Same-sex interfaith couples face roadblock to marriage in Judaism.
We haven't been arguing same-sex. Your claim was interracial, interethnic, that was your claim. Your claim was never the homosexuality argument. Remember that.
Wait, but you're trying to say that there's a homosexual, even Israel won't allow a homexual marriage. So
my argument,
why would Dubai allow a homosexual marriage?
My argument is that people.
And how's that strengthening your argument?
Because I'll explain it. My argument right here for right now is that people sometimes have the right to deny people the certain things for their religious freedom that they have, at least in America, right? Churches in
Okay, but
America
in
have the
Dubai-
right to deny, churches in America have the right to deny people to get married. We both agree on that, right?
Look, I agree with you. If the people in Israel are going to the Israeli temple and the Jewish temple to get married, yeah, the Israeli temple is allowed to them can basically force them not to do that. But if they're trying to get married if they're just trying to get a legal recognition of the marriage and they're not allowed to do that, how can you claim that? It has nothing to do with
Because they have the
actual
right to
mosque.
do that.
No, it has nothing to do with the mosque. They already did the marriage. It's between them, and all you have to do is you create a state document saying that they are married for the tax purposes. It has nothing to do with their marriage. So honestly, the problem is in our Arabic countries we don't actually pay taxes anyways. All you have is zakat. So we don't have to issue these papers. So we can never co-sign to gay marriage. But even the Jewish state will never co-sign to gay marriage either. I doubt that. I doubt they will in a Jewish temple they will co-sign for gay marriage. I doubt that will happen. So the argument
You're
just
right. They
doesn't
won't.
work.
They will recognize it legally though, because that is the law. But remember, I don't know why we're arguing this because you brought up this law as stating Israel. This is the same. It's the same thing repeating itself. You brought up something that you mischaracterized and brought it up in bad faith by saying they don't recognize the marriage and you can't even get married. You can. They just don't. They just won't do the marriage themselves. And you would agree with me that people have the right to do that, as you do. You know that some places probably have the right. Try to get married as a gay couple in Saudi Arabia. Like, try to get married. Like, you're gonna see that happen all across the world because it is, unfortunately or fortunately, whether your opinion is on it, a right that you are allowed to deny people of religious freedom under your religion if you are the authority behind it. The Pope could give a religious ceremony today for two gay people.
Look, this same-sex marriage just started to happen this 50 years. You cannot assume that countries are gonna align with this new agenda.
I'm not. I'm
Whereas
saying they have the right to deny.
Interfaith marriage has happened in countries for over centuries. I've never seen an Islamic country that says, "Oh, you're not allowed to marry as a Christian and a Muslim or a Christian and a Jew in this country." And I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen you obviously you cannot do it in the mosque. You have to go to your own church. But I've never seen you have to go travel outside. No. So let me ask you this. So they travel outside. They go get gay sex married, and then they come back, and then the state takes signs up on that document, and they say you're same-sex marriage.
For interfaith marriage, yes. I don't know about gay marriages, but remember, you brought it up as saying your claim was Israel does not recognize interfaith marriages, and that's incorrect completely.
Whereas
they do recognize it.
It's illegal to be. That's what I said. No, you.
It's not illegal either. Wait. It's not illegal either. It's not illegal either.
No. It's illegal to recognize. It's illegal to interfaith
Oh,
marriage.
you almost said recognize again.
Legally, it's not recognized legally inside the state of Israel.
It is recognized legally inside. As long as
No,
it's
it's
not.
not.
Yes, it is.
You have to go get married outside of it.
But
and
it's
then come
recognized
back with the
inside it. But it's
documentation.
recognized inside of it.
And all they give you is they say, okay, yeah, you're married. They don't.
That's
give you
what
any extra
marriage
rights.
is.
You don't get any more Israeli rights. You don't get to give him any citizenship. You don't get to give him anything.
That's
He
how
still
marriage
has
works.
to claim his own rights by himself. So basically, there's no integration.
Yeah, that's usually how marriage works. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the Muslim world, there's complete integration. Actually,
Wait.
there's rules against it because it's.
So the rules
helps
against
for
it there is that apartheid whenever the Saudi Arabia doesn't allow it? That's systematic oppression.
What, gay sex? Of course.
No. Whenever
But if they don't allow any person to legally get married inside the state, yeah, that's fucking apartheid. Yeah, I mean that's extremely segregatory. The problem is, yeah, they won't allow it in the mosque, but then you can go to the church and get married there.
do you know Muslim men aren't allowed to marry non-Muslim women?
Bullshit. That's not real.
It says if their brides do not follow the people. Wait, what is people of the book? Do you know?
The people of the book is Christians and Jews.
It's
You can
so then
marry-
Abrahamic. Okay, so if you came in with a what's a famous religion that is any Abrahamic non-Abrahamic religion? Do they recognize that?
No.
They don't.
Like, what do you mean? Like, do we believe
Just any
Buddha?
non-Abraham. No. I'm saying like a non-Abrahamic. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Like Buddhism?
Sure. Yeah. Do they recognize that?
I mean, like, I'm sure there's temples, but we don't. It's not like I don't know what you mean recognize like a Buddhist marriage. I mean, we don't care about that. You can be. Okay, I see what you're talking about. The misconception. So what you're talking about is in Islam, you cannot marry except from the people of the book. I see what you mean. And only the woman, a man can marry a woman. So this is totally different than what we were talking about.
No,
But
wait,
that's
wait.
where
This
it has
is
certain rules for it. It has certain rules because usually the woman follows the man and not the man that follows the woman. So she would change for him and he wouldn't change for her, and it creates a lot of animosity. Plus, it's easier to accept a woman into the family than a man to the family. There's a lot of reasons for this. So that's something totally different.
Wait.
But what I'm trying to tell you is Buddhist marriage, it's recognized in fucking
in
Saudi
Israel.
Arabia.
It's also in
If two
Israel.
Buddhists marry, or if a Buddhist and a Christian marry, that's none of our business. We just give them the certificate and go buy. We don't
Actually,
cancel it, and we don't tell them you have to leave the country and come back. I don't believe that actually is the case. Even Saudi Arabia, the worst of the worst. I mean, you cannot find another example. Maybe Iran.
So under Sharia law in Saudi Arabia, only Muslim individuals are allowed to marry in Saudi Arabia under Sharia law. No marriages between other religions are recognized by Saudi Arabia. So it is the exact same as Israel's law. You understand? Like,
Read it.
oh, I gotta pull back my thing. Okay. So basically what I'm saying is, although I would agree with you, definitely wrong, there is a right in some aspects of that. And I agree that, well, you wouldn't agree with me, but it probably is wrong. Okay, Sharia law for Saudi. Okay, so according to Islamic law, Saudi Arabia does not recognize marriages between people of different religions or nationalities unless you get married outside the country and submit a legal marriage certificate. So it is the exact same as Israel's when you were trying to claim that. You understand that, right? I can send you a link.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Here, send me the link for that.
I did. And it's like, I'm not saying that's like it. I think it's a moral wrong. I don't think it's a legal wrong. That's what I'm saying. They have the legal right to make that decision.
No. Do you believe Saudi Arabia is a democratic state?
I know it. Is it?
You keep using it as an example for democracy.
No. I'm just using it as an example to say that people do this throughout the world. That this is a right afforded to countries to be able to do this.
Yeah. Okay. So Saudi Arabia has one law that is shared by an apartheid state. Does that mean the whole state is apartheid? No. It has to share many.
I'm arguing for that
laws.
you brought that law up though, and I'm saying for that very specific law, which you purposely
I know, but
brought
this
up,
doesn't mean
it
that
doesn't
the
make
law
sense.
is not discriminatory.
What?
It's still a discriminatory law, even if it does exist in Saudi Arabia. But we're not talking about Saudi Arabia apartheid. So you actually agree with me? This is a discriminatory law. It even exists in Saudi Arabia. So you actually agree with me? This is very discriminatory. It's creating like a segregation.
There you go. As I say,
if Saudi Arabia agrees with it, we should maybe later talk about is Saudi Arabia apartheid in another discussion.
No, I'd never do that. No, the reason I would never do that is because it's not. Neither is Israel. I agree that there is.
No, it's actually
Wait.
because you're giving me Saudi Arabia, one of the worst countries in your opinion.
Whoa, I've never
as a
said that.
democratic state, to try to.
I've never said that either.
Yeah, 100%. Why else are you?
Okay, so wait.
You, it's like the complete opposite of a Western nation.
I know,
right?
but you understand that
And
you're completely
still,
strawmanning me right now.
And then you find the same exact discriminatory law inside that nation. And so you think that's a justification that your nation is not discriminatory?
Okay. No, that's not what I've been saying. So let's go back. Your claim was
Exactly
that.
what you said.
Wait. Your claim. Well, we can slow down here. Take a deep breath. Your claim was that this law is definitely wrong, and they shouldn't have the right to do that. Wait. But they shouldn't have the right to do that. I'm not arguing it's not discriminatory. Of course it's discriminatory. But guess what? Discriminatory is only 1/3 of apartheid. Systematic oppression is only 1/3. You can't prove anywhere that the reason for this is for a racial majority without the security threat being involved somewhere, and it takes up most of the intent. I've told you this. I will concede the entire debate if you can find one source supporting that argument. The problem is you won't.
You could, because even after you get married and you get recognized marriage in
Judaism.
Israel, you still cannot move in with your bride. You're still segregated into your zone. You don't get any extra rights, even if you married an Israeli citizen.
And how does that point to the intention being a racial majority?
So the intention is they're trying to make it as hard as possible for people to integrate with one another. So even if you marry an interfaith, you cannot integrate. Even if you actually do get married, it's extremely hard. First of all, you have to leave the country, come back. And then when you do come back, you have no extra rights. So you don't get any more mobility movement. You're stuck exactly in your zone. So it makes it, you basically see your wife once a month.
I don't think the not getting any extra rights. I assume you are afforded more rights.
Look it up. Look it up.
I
You don't get
will.
any new permits. You don't get any Israeli citizenship rights. You don't get anything until you have to basically apply for those own permits by yourself. And I'm not sure if
Wait.
you being married actually gives you any plus and any advantage.
Wait, does being married give you any more rights in general then?
No, I don't think so. Not
So then
in,
why is that your
Israel.
argument?
Because you're trying to say that getting married is actually it's actually it's not segregating. It's everybody's integrating with
Never.
one
I
another.
even
and
admitted it
there's no-
was. I even admitted it was. I just said you can't show the intent.
So the intent is they want to keep this segregation happening, which is why they won't even allow them to live with one another after they get married. They won't even let her move into the Gaza area, and they won't let him move into the Israeli area.
So why is that? Why do they say that is? Let me look it up.
You want to say it's for security. I'm going to say it's because they want to make sure they're segregated as ethnic groups and they can never have kids with one another. And so they can keep these localities segregated. They can keep those school districts segregated. And so they can keep full control over that, zone. Because the number one risk that the Israeli government has is that these people start fucking each other and marrying each other and integrating with one another. Then they actually not hurt each other anymore. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I can't find you an actual document where they say the intentions out loud. But to be honest with you, even when I do find you these places where they say the intentions out loud, like for example, the Knesset, they want to be extremely genocidal. You won't accept it. You'll say, "Oh, it's a couple of bad apples. It's this guy or an IDF soldier shooting the balls off of kids." You won't accept that there's a bad intent there. It's just one bad actor.
You understand you just described yourself to a T, right? I brought you multiple sources, and whenever you saw my first source, you laughed and talked about it with your chat when you muted. And then after that, you also questioned every other source I brought up. But every time you brought in a source, I read it with you and we've gone through it. I've never said that's a dumb source. Every single time we've read the source together. But whenever you've seen my sources, you've done exactly the same thing you're saying is really bad.
No, not at all. For example, when you showed me the international humanitarian, I just wanted to understand what the proportionality law was.
True. And then when I brought it up to you, you said it wasn't that law.
And I took it in. No, I just understood it completely different than you understood it. From what I understood it, it says you cannot create actual crimes against civilians. And especially if you know they're civilians, you have to try to reduce that casualty as much as possible. So to me, that's an argument for special ops. But for you, I guess it's not.
It's not because it's not.
I actually did not
to me,
at all.
Yeah, because to me, it's not an argument for or against. It never mentioned special ops once.
I know, but it does mention that you have to have care. You have to worry about the civilians.
It never
then
says we agree. The number doesn't matter.
Resources. No, we looked at other sources saying that even if there was military facility, even if this was a military designation, you still cannot just bombard it.
That was wrong.
You have to use
the reason
because it would be a war crime because you know that you're violating provisions of international.
And the provision was they could not distinguish between civilians and militants. That's not a war crime on Israel's part. That's a war crime on Hamas's.
So when they say you cannot distinguish, I understand a bomb.
I understand it as whenever they bomb somewhere, they usually do weeks of intelligence before then, as they've made that claim, and I haven't seen anything in the contrary for it. I'm sorry.
Wait, what? So they make weeks of planning.
I'll give you. If you can find anything that says, wait. Actually, I can make this as dumbed down as not dumbed down. I'll make it simplified. Sorry. Do you think they don't look at like pictures, videos, live feeds, like satellite video? Do you think they look at that before they bomb?
I'll give it to you. But like when are you talking about their old military campaigns? Maybe I believe you. But today, there's so much atrocity happening every day. I doubt there's any planning. At this point, the drone sees a human being, they just shoot it down. Honestly, they don't even ask their commanders, I bet you.
You seriously believe that with 25, I think it's 25, Blur put this stat in earlier, you could scroll up and you're trying to find it, with 25,000 bombs dropped and only 10,000 civilian deaths, you think they're just throwing those willy-nilly in the most densely populated area in the world? Is that what you're telling me right now?
So you think there's only 10,000 civilians dead?
No, I don't. I'm not saying that. I am saying that with that's evidence. Wait. That is the evidence I am providing, okay? With that evidence, do you have a different conclusion than me?
But what evidence do you have that there's 25,000 only killed 10,000 civilians?
It was Blur.
My evidence shows me they emptied their arsenal and they killed over 40,000 civilians.
Well, yeah, obviously they've killed more civilians than only from that their bombing campaign. They have other campaigns that they're doing, but I'm trying to find it. Give me a second.
Oh, you're talking about different campaigns. Okay.
Yeah, but you're talking about I'm talking about their bombing campaign specifically, which right now, from what I'm reading from Blur, so I'm not putting any stake in this race. It said that 25,000 bombs have been dropped, 10,000 civilian casualties have been from it.
Okay, I just have a very hard time to believe this because what I've seen drone footage where guys will be walking, they'll bomb him, then somebody else will hear the noise, he'll come out and he'll start walking, they'll bomb him, and then his friend sees him die, he falls on the ground, they bomb him. I swear to God, I've seen that video.
Yeah,
There's no evidence that your claim is true, that there is people sitting there planning weeks and weeks and weeks on end trying to figure out studying the landscape. There's no evidence to that at all. I'm seeing videos. Immediate murder, immediate.
So he did just put the link in, by the way. It's from Times of Israel, by the way. I think that's what the link is. I asked him for it. I assume that's what it is. But what he has said, following Hamas's surprise attack on October 7th, it has killed more than 10,000 people. And then earlier, the line was it 25,000 bombs have been dropped? So that is what I'm saying. Okay, sorry, that's off track. That was just me studying the source, okay?
No worries, I'm confused.
And again, I don't understand how, when we look at this, we think, you either have two options. You think that they're handling themselves incorrectly and they're trying to kill civilians, or they're legally in the wrong. And we've agreed that the number doesn't matter, so the number doesn't matter in that case.
No, they have to be
reduced.
I think it's both, actually. It's both, because in the ICJ case, for example, South Africa brought a plethora of reasoning. I think it was like 12 to 15, and from them there's a lot. So yeah, I agree. Both of those two actually fall in line. They're they're not actually caring enough about the casualties, knowing they're going to create casualties. They don't care. Because that's why my question is, how can you justify, from the beginning I asked you this, let's say they are in war, this is a war zone, one-on-one fighting, can you justify Russia doing this to the Ukrainians, doing 40,000 civilian casualties because Ukrainians did, I don't know, an atrocity in their city? And if you can justify that, how? Why is it not on the bases, the military bases? Why are you justifying it on actual civilians on the ground? That's my whole argument, and you still cannot justify it. You can look at all the military law, all the international law you can look for and hope to find. Everything is on my side. There's proportionality laws forcing you to actually, knowing there's casualties, you have to reduce them. There's legal war crimes laws, internationally recognized by Amnesty International, all these people. You're not allowed to just bomb hospitals. Even the International Information Center of the Israeli Information Center of Human Rights says it's not legal to even bomb Al-Shifa, even after all the information. This is from
even though we both agree that source is wrong.
Sure, you can say that this source is wrong, but you got so mad at me because I said every one of your sources
I'm not saying it's wrong. Wait. But remember, I'm not discrediting it based on what it is. I'm discrediting.
I didn't discredit either. I just said we need more information.
I am discrediting it because the law that it cites isn't a war crime against Israel. It is a war crime against
It's because you
Gaza.
read it wrong. You're reading it.
It says
wrong.
Okay. Tell me where I'm reading it wrong.
You don't care about the number, but in the law, there's
not a single number. There's not a single. I can tell you this.
But there's that standard. There's the distinction. There's
and they follow that standard.
100 casualties and 1,000.
You are completely correct. But remember, your argument a while ago was that there needs to be a number. You're kind of backtracking your previous arguments.
Between me and you, so in the future, when there's another war crime, we know if they're committing it. But the international community hasn't come to a number. I agreed with you.
The problem, though, is because you can't put a number because war is done disproportionately throughout war. There's going to be wars where it's...
Yeah, you can. You can.
There's going to be war...
No, you can, because you have a different choice to make between one Hamasi and 10 civilians and 10 Hamasis and one civilian. There's a different choice to make every single time, so the numbers matter.
Wait. Do you agree, though? Do you see the difference? So if you set a definite law, right? You understand that there are a different number of people in war in every different war. If there's a war with 100 people on each side and there's a war with 10,000 people on each side, the number shouldn't matter. It's more the intentions. Can we agree on that? Wait, is 100 people committing a genocide and murdering 1,000 people worse than a military conducting a rightful, legal, justified campaign and killing 101 civilians, but killed 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 terrorists?
I finally understand where you're coming from. So for some reason, you think I'm only asking about the numbers. I actually proved to you multiple times they have intentional reasoning.
I've told you that if you found a single source.
Sending special ops, for example, they did send special ops in Al-Shifa hospital because they knew it could be a very bad, dark mark on them. Because you have no other reason to give me. You cannot actually explain to me why did they go special ops. I'm telling you, the reason is they knew there was terrorists in there, but they knew that there's civilians, so they knew they cannot do that bombarding campaign. So they had to go special ops. Now there's other hospitals. They look at it. There's like, oh, there's only 1,000. Fuck it, let's just bomb the whole hospital. Whereas this time, I don't know, for some special reason, they looked at the numbers. But I could actually find you the intent. There's intents, because the intent is they're bombing the hospitals other than Al-Shifa. But when it comes to Shifa, they go send special ops. Why? Instead of just bombing them to the floor, knowing that that's the solution to every other problem. Why? Because
They don't want to kill
recognize
civilians.
there's a big issue there. They cannot do that. They have no legal rights to do this.
Have you found a single source to back up that claim? I'm gonna ask you again, because the last source you found.
Okay, you show me your source. You show me the source.
I
Why
did.
they go into
Remember
special ops?
the hospital? No, wait. I'm challenging your claim of this. You're saying they did it because it would be legally wrong to. I'm saying that we have brought up 4 different sources on that one claim, and all of them have said that there is legal justification to attack a hospital in war.
Yeah, but not bombing it, which is why they have
There
to
is-
go
wait.
in. I just brought you a source. I brought you the Israeli Information Center of Human Rights in the occupied
And that
territory.
source-
It said Israel must not bomb Al-Shifa hospital.
Because?
That's the title of it. And then it said why? Because it constitutes a war crime, violating the provisions of the international humanitarian law that Israel has repeatedly declared its commitment to hold. According to the provisions, Israel must distinguish between civilians and combatants,
Yep.
which is why they sent in special ops.
wait.
You're trying to argue that I didn't give you a reason. This is my reasoning.
So the law that you just stated is called perfidy, okay? It is called you cannot use clothing or any other means to deceive an enemy. That's what you're just saying, okay? So like if you play dead, that's called perfidy. You're using goodwill to deceive the enemy. If you dress up as a civilian, you're using goodwill to deceive the enemy. Israel is not dressing up as civilians.
Holy shit! Isn't that what Israel did in one of their hospital campaigns?
I don't know, but I
You
know
see that
Hamas
video?
has done it
I'll
every
show you
day.
the video.
Wait, but here's the thing though. I don't make my claims based on one antidote. I go off of the generality of the war. Hamas has always, there's never been a single instance when a Hamas member has had an actual civilian, like a uniform on. Maybe there has. But the
Bro, I
majority.
literally saw a video where they dress up. I'll show it to you right now. Look at my channel.
Wait, okay,
They
but we
dress
don't have to do
up as
this.
Civilians.
Do you agree though the majority of them dress up as civilians? The
Yeah,
majority.
I would
okay.
say this is a-
yeah.
After what I saw, I believe this is a normal behavior. They do this all the time. The way they're so casual.
They may. It's a
they
war
dress up
crime.
like- She has a baby. She has a baby in her hand. Talk about goodwill. There's a baby in her hand.
Yeah. When Hamas, bombed Israel and
Can
killed
it be
babies,
more
it was really
goodwill
bad
than
too,
this?
right?
Goodwill? Huh?
I said when Hamas bombed Israel and killed some babies too, it was bad too, right? We can both agree. That killing babies is wrong in war. We can both agree, right?
Your argument was that they don't dress up. I showed you proof they do dress
No,
up and go
my
in and
argument
act
is
like
that the
they're civilians,
majority-
and then they kill people.
Do you agree that the majority of them do dress as civilians though?
I would say
The majority.
part of the policy for their actions, part of their policy based on the actual case, they are actually justified to do that. Yes.
You can say that, but
policies.
international law, there's no justification for that ever. So internationally, they are in the wrong. Hey, wait! You're looking away. Wait!
They were
You're looking
wrong.
away. No, wait. That's called a war
That
crime.
one case,
Yep.
They were wrong.
Yep. Do we agree right there? There's a war crime. Do we agree, or should we keep going on it?
So you agree with me that they did something wrong once?
Hamas or Israel? Yes. Do you think I don't? You think I think they've
Israel
never done anything
dresses
wrong?
up and walks into hospital.
So,
Does Hamas
yes.
dress up and walk into hospital?
Maybe. I don't know the kids talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised, okay? But there's a difference between a single action and a policy. That's actually the difference between war crimes. If a Israeli soldier shoots a Palestinian in the back and he was innocent, as we've seen, that soldier gets tried. If it is Israel's policy to shoot Palestinian civilians, then it is a war crime. You understand that difference, right? Between policy and actual single actions.
Isaac, so I don't care about numbers anymore. We're gonna get into the intent now. I'm gonna get deep into the intent now.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna show you finally. Apartheid. This is it. Apartheid. They're apartheid. They are intentionally targeting and kicking out Palestinians out of Israeli territory. They believe this is their territory.
Yep.
They justified it using October 7.
True.
But they
Which we
didn't
both
need
agreed
an
is a-
October 7. They did not need an October 7. They could justify
wait.
it with anything they want. They've
We
been
both already
justifying it for the
agreed,
past
though.
75 years.
True. I
They've
agree with you.
justified it since 1967.
I agree with you. But again, we both agreed earlier that there is a actual security risk that is understandable on Israel's side.
So there is no. There's no security risk because there's an intent there. The
You
intent
said about
is
40
Israel
minutes ago there
believe-
was. Are we changing now? Are we gonna have to go back to
No,
that?
there's no security. But how can you have a security risk if you're the occupier? You can't have a.
How can I have a-
Occupied has a security risk.
could
You're
be
right.
super-
Hamas has a security risk. They have to go bomb. You're not gonna have a. Israel doesn't have a security risk as the occupier.
They
Listen
don't?
to me.
There's not a single
No,
security risk
how-
there. There's
Then
no.
they can get the fuck out of the land. They can leave.
So can Hamas. What? That's not an argument. That's like saying if you don't like it.
That's their home
Wait.
country.
So is Israel. If you want to make that claim, that doesn't matter. You're making the claim right now. If African American doesn't like racism, he has to go back to his country. You're making that argument right now.
No, I'm actually making the claim that the UN claimed that they're illegally occupying territory
Again,
that they don't belong to them, and they're trying to steal it from the people.
I won't make a definite argument on either side. I could see it both ways. I agree with you. Okay, I would here actually. I agree with you. I think that because of the Rome Statute,
have the right to defend itself.
if there's a security risk, and we both agree that there is.
Okay, then does that mean the occupier has the right to defend himself as well,
Yeah, that would.
or the
that works.
occupied, right?
Yes.
So how can you justify, based on October 7, the casualties you've been committing to the Palestinian people? If they had the right to defend themselves, how can you have the right to kill all the civilians?
Because
Where
there is
in
a
the
wait.
international community you're given that right?
Because there is a security risk, which means it's not apartheid. There's a reason that no international community has come out and said, "Hey, this is illegal."
But can America today say there's a security risk? You cannot eat red meat because the climate change, and they can just
Yes,
illegally...
they could.
And would you agree that now, justifiably, America now has made red meat illegal? This was justifiable?
Would I agree it's justifiable? No. Would I agree they legally have the right to do that? Yeah.
Okay, but I'm
Were you
just
here for-
saying...
you understand that-
No. They actually don't have the right to make
They
to
do.
do that. Just
They
because
do.
you create a justification using an emergency doesn't give you the right. You're taking it using that.
Have you ever heard of
You're not
emergency
giving the right.
orders?
Nobody gave you the right. You stole it.
You understand the president can become a dictator if it's in a time of emergency, right?
Exactly. You steal the right to...
Wait,
exactly,
that's not
you're
steal.
stealing the right.
It is written in our laws that he legally has the right to do that. If you want to go into morals, we can, but that's boring.
Look, I get it in the laws.
The law is not on your side. That's what I'm saying.
Man, my argument is you cannot justify it. You cannot
I'm
justify
not trying to.
even
I'm
with
just
the law.
saying legally it isn't an apartheid state.
And they are actually occupying the land. So
Nah, I'm not arguing
how
that
can they
either.
how can they be defending themselves if they're the occupiers? I really don't get it. But so Hamas can defend themselves?
Can Hamas defend itself? It could in 1948. It could in 1967. It could in the
It can't now. It can't go to a hospital and set up a base there
legally,
because-
I'm pretty sure it can, but morally, I think that after a few wars, you should try to come to some peace. But we haven't seen that yet. But I think
Let's
legally,
come
I think
to
that
let's come to the legal intentions here.
okay.
So the only way I'm going to be able to prove Israel is committing this apartheid is by the fact of the matter that they don't actually care about Palestinians. There's so many cases
That wouldn't
where
make it apartheid,
They
though.
only changed their rulings and they only committed for example, they only they fired these IDF soldiers that killed the World Health Kitchen, World Kitchen chef, whatever. But only because they were Europeans and Americans. If the Palestinians have been dying every single day, not a single IDF soldier was fired. Not until this World Kitchen died, then they fired the soldiers. I have many examples like that I can give you.
You don't think a single IDF soldier's been fired since the beginning of the war? Is that what you're saying?
Very rare, and every time they fire them, it creates a big atrocity, like a big problem for the actual the actual state that they don't do that anymore. It's
Good
very
thing.
rare.
Hey, I'm surprised to see at least IDF will get rid of their soldiers that do crimes. But I don't see Hamas. They actually condone
Okay,
it.
show me how many soldiers. Show me if it's more than 100. Has it been more than
You
100
don't think
soldiers?
it's more than? It's gonna be more than 100.
I really doubt it.
Really? How?
Yeah, I mean
many
that's how much
IDF
I actually don't believe they care at all.
Soldiers
Actually,
have
I believe they have afforded them extreme security. I believe they give them extreme legal loops, exactly like they do here with the cops in America, because they need them to do the work and not be scared. So I think I actually would be very skeptical.
So this is a very niche stat, but about 90 soldiers have already been discharged due to PTSD alone.
in this war or ever altogether.
From the start of their service in the IDF from this current conflict.
What about some
From October 7th, from after the October 7th. These 90 people were all from the October 7th massacre, by the way.
Yeah, so this PTSD, they were scared.
And they got kicked out. Your claim was that I couldn't find 100. I just found 90 from one day, October 7th.
Yeah. So 90, but this has nothing to do with
Also-
murder. Didn't get fired. They just had PTSD and they wanted to leave. They
Also,
didn't want to be
hear me out.
soldiers anymore.
Monarchy.
It's totally different.
Aminar, we should wrap up so then we could end this and then have Blur join because Blur's been talking a lot. I think it would be interesting if we had him join because he seems to be in between both of our sides because he's
Sure,
defending you.
yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
So
Sure.
do you want to go
But
first?
listen to me. Okay, let me get to the apartheid part. There's intent. I swear to you, there's intent.
All right, let's see it.
Israel is intentionally targeting civilians and killing them. You can see that from the war trajectory. They went from the north all the way, pushing down people into Rafah or
That's how
Rafah,
every war
and
is
then-
done. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that systematically, intentionally to push them out, and because they can't actually go through the ocean. They want to get
You're
them
describing a
through
front line in war right now, right?
They want to get them through Egypt. They won't even send them through Israel. They just want to get them through Egypt, man.
Hey.
Like they don't allow. They won't even allow them in.
Yeah. Why doesn't Egypt allow them in?
I'm a civilian of this country. Now this country is bombing me because they're saying my military killed them. I believe they're not justified to kill me. Now I have to run. How is this not an apartheid, genocidal, maniac occupying power? Like I get it. You're trying to say there's intent. It's so clear to me. There's intent. The U.S., the international community recognizes they are illegally occupying Gaza and West Bank and Golan Heights. Almost every Arab state in the region is having issues with them. They cannot declare them as their friends and benefit with them. It's creating a lot of issues. They're going into different, like they're now fighting in Lebanon, Syria. They're bombing into Iran. They're created a big conflict in the zone, in the area. How can you justify all of this? Like, how can you not see there's intention that they're trying to take over that area? They want to destabilize the area. They want to destabilize the zone. They're very successful at it, and they're attacking every other country around, not only Palestine.
It's because I don't think you have shown a decent case for me. So the way I look at it is like Occam's razor, right? The most simple outcome in a situation is probably the most likely outcome, right? I think that if you look at the situation, every single situation you've explained, Occam razor and says the opposite. Why did they do that? Because, if they bombed it, it would be wrong. That's not what the law says. So what's Occam's razor? They probably did it because they didn't want to kill the civilians inside of it. Am I saying that no civilians died in it? Of course not. That's casualties of war. What I'm saying is, though, Occam's razor, the most simple answer is that they are actually fighting against killing innocent lives. Obviously, there are going to be casualties of war. That is in every war that has ever happened. I'm saying that there's nothing that you can show me that's not going to be easily identifiable as saying there's probably general security cause for that reason. Bombing this town?
Okay, clear. Israel is illegally occupying the region.
True.
They believe that region belongs to them. It's an
True.
illegal occupation, internationally known. And they create extreme segregation. What about those segregative laws? So you
I
actually
agree.
agreed with me.
Yes, they're
You agree-
segregative laws. Yes.
No, you agreed with me. Like, goddamn it, if Saudi Arabia is your example of democracy, that's the worst example.
Never even mentioned the word
Saudi Arabia has
democracy.
The same exact law. It has the same exact law as the Jewish state, the democratic Jewish state.
Remember,
How is
and
that not clear proof that they're trying to segregate, keep people away?
That's not the argument that was made. One, I never mentioned a democracy. My point was that you said that law is not okay and should not be allowed. I said, well, look, I agree. It is probably morally wrong, even though you don't think that. At least Islam doesn't think that unless it's Abrahamic religion. Islam thinks that's okay. I think that's morally wrong. Legally, though, I'm able to identify that they do have the right to do that, and you know what agrees with me? International law, every country's law, that's what we see.
No, because there's no other country in the world besides Saudi Arabia and Iran that you can point at that says you cannot marry interfaith marriage.
Okay, so
there's no legal.
So if I went to
Yes, sir.
the Vatican City right now with a man and I said, marry me, Pope, is he gonna marry me?
So that's totally different. When we're talking about holy places, I agree with you. Holy places. Now you're gonna say that Israel is a holy land?
Isn't it? Isn't that like I don't know the back story, but isn't that what Israel is?
But then every other nation can argue that that's their holy land. The Jews can argue
That's
that.
true. That's the
Muslims
problem
can
with
argue that,
saying
and the
something's holy
Christians can argue
land.
that.
Yeah, good thing I didn't make that claim. You did.
No, I never did that.
You
did that.
said-
I'm
I would
saying
agree
there's
because it's a
lands,
holy
they have
land.
Special rulings, but we're not claiming that this is a holy land.
Are you-
Because if
wait.
we do, we give everybody special rulings.
Is Jerusalem a holy land to you?
Yeah, but then we have to give the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims all those rulings.
I'm gonna
So
repeat.
actually, this breaks your argument actually, because now
think it
you
does.
have no justification why Israel has full control over it. Why Israel justified as the Jewish state? You have no idea, because Jerusalem is clear. It's for the people. It's for all the people, all the Abrahamic religions.
So I don't think Israel has stated that. And on top of it, my argument was never that. At least we can agree, though, that people
So
have the right
Israel
to
did
do
not
that.
say they're gonna make Jerusalem the embassy because it's for the Jewish people.
What you just said was are for all people, and then what you just said was there for like
What I
Jewish
said is,
people.
I don't know if you know anything about the Holy Land. Jerusalem is not only the Holy Land for the Jews; it's the Holy
It's a
Land for
lot, yeah.
everyone.
True. So right. So right there, you switch your
For
claim
all the
then.
Abrahamic. So if you, that's why I never made that claim. But you're trying to talk about the
But you
Vatican.
do.
Then we have to make the claim that Israel is actually like the Vatican, a Holy Land. But then
Wait,
you can't do that
you
because you,
make
have
that
to claim
claim.
everybody is
You
protected,
think
not only the
that.
Jews.
What you're saying
And
is
that actually defeats your claim
it
because then the
doesn't.
Jews
I think it
cannot
defeats
protect
yours.
themselves. They cannot make
I
their
think
own
you're-
state because it's the people's land.
I think you're between a rock and a hard place because you just said that if it was a holy land, it would be okay. And because of your religion, you have to say
Yeah,
it's a holy
exactly.
land.
If it's a holy land, you can say
And
you can
is it
segregate marriage,
okay?
but it's not a holy land. You
Wait,
can't.
is
If
Jerusalem a holy
you
land
make
for
it a
you?
holy land, it has to be for everybody.
Is Jerusalem a holy land?
The Jerusalem is the holy land for all the people, not only the Jews.
Okay.
The Jews have no rights
So
over it.
because it's a holy land, do we agree that they have special access to do what they did for marriages?
Not only the Jews, every single human being has access to it. Not
But
only the
wait,
Jews.
does everyone have does every faith that does view that as the Holy Land, do they have the right to have that view on marriage that Israel has?
So Jerusalem is actually very specific, very very interesting. It's literally the homeland for every Abrahamic religion. Jesus was born there, so Christians believe in
Yep.
it as the Holy Land. The Jews were their whole history was in there. I
Yep.
agree that. But not every Jew, not the Ashkenazi Jews, for example.
I
Those
was say, wait a
European
minute,
Jews
you just
have
made a claim
nothing
that
to
would go
do-
against you.
They have nothing to do with those Jews. They act like they're the same Jews. They're not the same Jews. And then they have nothing to do with Jacob and Ishmael and all this whole John. They have no claim to that heritage. And then finally, you have to also give it to the Muslims because Al-Aqsa is the most holy land for them. So now you cannot actually demand that Israel is the land for the holy people. You cannot make, for the Jewish people, you cannot make all these discriminatory laws based on the holy land. You can't because
I'm not. You made the
But
claim.
you're trying to say, but I'm trying to link it to you. That's why you can't do that in Vatican either.
The problem is-
I mean, sorry. That's why you can do it in the Vatican because it's actually the land for the holy like Christian Catholic people, but it's not the land for anybody else. So yeah, you can make those rules. That's kind of why Saudi Arabia has
Is
those
Saudi
certain
Arabia the Holy
rules.
Land?
Yes, they have Mecca.
Is
They have
Iraq?
Mecca. They have, yeah. For example, Mecca. Not a single Muslim.
Is
non-Muslim
Iraq?
is allowed to go in there. Not a single non-Muslim is allowed to go in there. Is that discriminatory and
Wait.
racist? No, it's just the land of the holy people. They just don't allow it. That's a totally different
Is Iraq
case.
a Holy Land?
Sorry?
Is Iraq a Holy Land?
No, Iraq.
Is America a Holy Land?
Nope.
Okay, I just named two places that both have the same right that you are saying that is only specified to Holy Lands. Is it okay that they have that right?
The right to mix
To
marriage?
not personally have a marriage of interfaith. Is that okay for them to do?
So Iraq and America, you said they don't allow interfaith marriage?
I'm saying, is it okay for people in those countries to not recognize it? If I go to a church in America and they say they won't marry me, is that okay?
If you're interfaith and they won't marry you, to me that sounds like they're. I mean, there's rules to it, but yeah, if you follow the rules and they still don't marry you, yeah, absolutely.
The rule is that, but wait,
Absolutely
that's the problem though. There
discriminatory.
is no rules. They get the authority to choose legally.
Who? Who gets
In
that?
America, they have the right to choose. You understand that, right? No, wait. This is easy. That's actually true. You know that, right? There's a religious exemption to the discrimination law for marriages. You understand that, right? There is an exception built into that law for religion, for religions that don't agree with the marriage being performed.
So the religions can say you cannot marry them?
Basically, if you are a religious
I think what you're trying to say is the mosque won't take them in. I
any
agree
church,
with
any
you.
church has the right to do that. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's what happens. But
Okay.
then the state has to recognize the law, the marriage.
The state will recognize the marriage if you go to.
the thing about America is you don't have to get married by the church. You can get married by the state. But I'm talking about in countries where you cannot get married by the state, you have to get married by the church. When they don't recognize that marriage, then it creates a big issue for you.
So is that wrong in Saudi Arabia?
So in Saudi Arabia, sure, that's wrong. So you
Okay.
agree with me?
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I'll
You
listen.
agree with me then? Yeah, you agree
Hey,
with
I
me.
will agree. It's extremely
Of course, Saudi Arabia is not a
discrimination.
democratic nation.
Okay, I'm not saying it's democratic. I'm just saying that's discrimination. But discrimination, as we
Yeah,
already
of course it
agreed, isn't an
discriminates, of course,
apartheid.
actually, but
Okay.
Saudi Arabia is the holy land. They're trying to say it's the holy land here, but they have no justification for that. It's the holy land for everybody. It's like me, I gave it to you for the Vatican. I said if the Vatican won't allow a single interfaith marriage there, I said, yeah, okay, I totally agree with that. I don't see that as discriminatory. This is a holy thing. It's a religious holy land. This is totally, it gives you a different scenario. You see what I mean? It's very nuanced. This is why
True.
maybe me and you, it's hard to talk. There's so many nuances that we need to dive deep into, and I get why this discussion is deep. But man, yeah, it's definitely discriminatory. I really believe that. You have
Sure.
you have to give the people the opportunity. But there's laws, like we have laws, like for example, a woman cannot marry, but that's not discriminatory. Those are laws created in the books for a reason. But
But it is
just
discriminatory.
what I'm trying to argue is those laws in Israel, they're not the same in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian laws, they believe that they're the holy land, and they have to take care of their people. They have to take care
Israel
of their
thinks the same
religion.
thing.
And they actually create Sharia law. In Israel, they pick and choose when they do Sharia law, Jewish Sharia law, and they pick and choose when they go and they become
But
democratic.
you understand
liberal
Israel
nation.
does
They just pick
believe.
and choose whenever they feel like it.
Israel does believe, though, they're the holy land, right? They're in their holy land. Whether that's true or if it isn't true, that you do recognize that Israel has that view.
Okay, but they believe that that's the holy land. Do you understand that that's the holy land for all the people, though? I give
Do
you
they
the
say
evidence
that?
for-
All I know
No,
is
they
that
have no evidence.
all I know is
They actually
Israel.
recognize that. They recognize they have to take the Al-Aqsa off and create their temple. So they have to get rid of the holy land
Actually,
of the old people.
Didn't they even split? Isn't Jerusalem split
No,
in the
there's
middle?
no split. No, look at the new red heifer thing. It's completely, they're taking over. They're just gonna kill the red heifer, then they're just gonna demolish the mosque, Al-Aqsa, and then they're just gonna build the new temple. No, they don't have any respect for us. They don't even call it the Holy Land.
So
for
what
the
I'm seeing
people,
right now
for
is
the
it's
Muslims.
currently split between West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. And East Jerusalem it's Palestinian, and West Jerusalem it's Israel. So even
Anyway,
they agree.
You're trying to hide your argument based on religious segregation. Of course, there's going to be religious segregation. You cannot be fucking when you're a religious country from a certain religion. You cannot segregate with other religions completely accurately. You're going to have to be like your own show. That wasn't my argument at all. I never ever mentioned that Jews or anything except when it comes to the Israeli
You did.
citizenship rights,
The only
which is
reason we
very
talked about-
illegal. No, I only mentioned that because it's extremely discriminatory that you can be, just because you're religious from a different religion, you were an Uber driver yesterday in New York City, and now you can become an Israeli citizen with 100% rights over your Palestinian
I don't know how he jumped back to right of return. Yeah,
Listen.
but remember, your claim was that they don't have the right to do that. So I instead said, what about other religious places? Do they have the right to? And you agreed. And then you caveated that, but they have to be holy land. That's what led to that. But they don't have to be holy land. America, you can do that in America. You can do that everywhere else. Well, not everywhere else, but most of the world has that idea, okay? But I think we should wrap up. We're at 3 hours. It's gonna go long. It's gonna go longer than our first podcast. We can't.
Let's wrap up. Let's put 3 hours.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, let me prepare. I had nothing prepared because I was just going to do it on the fly. Let's see it. Okay, so I think at the end of this discussion, I think that it's very easy to see that when it comes to is Israel doing wrong, I would agree. I think it's also easy to say that are they doing things that probably is harmful to civilians? I would agree. But remember, behind every intentional action that is done in Israel, it's not on the intention of hurting civilians, it's of the intention of hurting Hamas. And the reason the intention is hurting civilians is because directly of Hamas. Hamas uses civilian clothing to make the enemy hesitate and to make them question whether that is Hamas or not. And because of that, that's what causes that. And then when it comes to why do they have to bomb hospitals? You're right, bombing hospitals is pretty bad, but they do it because it becomes a military target. We've seen that as well. And then so what we're seeing is behind any other thing, on the surface, I agree that it does look like there is some sort of intent. But as you dig into it, as you actually read what happened or you read the justification, you can clearly see that there is justification for these attacks. Not because of what Israel is doing, but because of what Hamas is doing. And if you want to say, I've heard the claim before, I know Minar doesn't make it because Minar is smart and doesn't make this claim, but there's a claim that Hamas, Palestinians aren't the perfect victims. That's why this happens. That's not true. That has nothing to do with the argument. The argument is how Hamas is handling themselves in the war. That is causing the civilian casualties. If Hamas today, handed over to civilians, would there be a ceasefire? Do you know that? I just remember this now. There was a Hamas person for the negotiations that said they couldn't deliver 40 hostages in a negotiation because they couldn't confirm that 40 hostages were alive. They were probably doing that because they don't want to give away their intelligence, but it also could be that there aren't 40 hostages alive, which would also be a really bad thing. I think though the problem is, do I agree that what they're doing could be wrong? Of course. Do I agree with there could be is apartheid? No, because when you use the word like apartheid, you're putting out a very specific legal term. And the legal term is that there has to be a intent behind it that they want to create a racial majority. And the history just is against that. In the partition plan, they would have had a majority of Arabs in an area. They would have been in a land minority, which was fucked up, but they've already shown they would have accepted Arabs into their land. So they didn't want a racial majority. They just wanted a place to be. They wanted a country. That's what Zionism was. Okay. Do I think it's gone too far? Do I think it could have? Do I think that Israel could have been gotten rid of in the first 10 years of it being there? I do. I do think they would have had the moral right to fight. I think over years though, the moral right to fight has lessened as their direct actions on the Palestinian side has caused civilian deaths. You can say the bombings from Israel has caused that, but the reason Israel is bombing those places because that's where Hamas is fighting out of. And I think at the end of it, just remember that every single time that case was brought up, we brought up the Israel bombing the hospital case, ended up not being Israel. There was no confirmation on that. And instead, all evidence pointed to Hamas or a jihadist organization. While that might not be true, I did not bring that as a definite. The other side has. On top of that, then when we went down it, we have flipped to other statements where we talk about how whenever he said that whenever Hamas bombs places with babies, it is okay because they are settlers. But whenever Israel kills a baby, that it's wrong. Isn't that a very, very biased take that you can very clearly see? If you can't, here's my easy way to see if someone's biased in a topic. If they can't admit they're wrong on both sides, I already know they're biased, okay? If they can't condemn both sides at the same time, it's very easy to see. When I talk to a Trump supporter and I say, and they're like, Biden did that and that's wrong, I was like, fuck yeah, he should not have got that money from Ukraine. Trump though, election fraud, we agree, right? They're like, no. And I'm like, how do we, they're both obvious, right? When you have situations like that, it's very interesting to see that. And we see it time and time throughout the day where we will get to a situation and I'll be like, hey, here's common ground we can agree on. Can we agree both sides are wrong because of this? And every time, Israel's wrong because of it, but not Hamas, because Hamas has this very niche organization or very niche reasoning. And remember, when it came to the hospital law, we have yet to see a law that contradicts what I've said. And then earlier in the argument, there was a definite number that have also changed. And I just feel like as we've seen every time and time again, we've seen how it changes and it changes and it changes. While my side, I've taken every source at face value. Whenever I've shown a video of a source, he very easily discredited it. 1, to his stream, 2, to me, because he muted the first time. Good thing I had chat open. But I'm just saying, you can very clearly see that what's happening here is one side is being bad faith. I love Minar, let me say that. He's one of my favorite dudes. But it is very clearly that when it comes to this argument, it's going to be very, very emotional and very, very obvious on both sides because there's way too much nuance in this conversation. There's way too much. Obviously, both of us aren't intellectuals on the topic, and I do want to end it nice because, like I said, I love Minar. We got heated today, but obviously we both knew we were gonna. But he's a smart dude, okay? But I think that it's very clearly to see what's happening on each side here. You're good, Minar. It's your turn. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you, Isaac. Yes, sorry about that. So Isaac says I'm emotional today, but I asked him multiple times to give me evidence why was the special ops sent into the Al Shifa and not just bombarded like every other hospital. He couldn't give me a reason. It's clear as day that the Shifa hospital, the special ops had to go in there because the proportionality just did not line up. The same laws that he tried to use to justify the crimes that Israel is committing in Gaza today is the same law that justifies the special ops being sent into this Al Shifa hospital instead of the bombardment of that hospital. We looked at a lot of resources today and we talked a lot. Hopefully, guys, you were able to connect with at least one of our points. My point here is I have complete recognition, complete belief that Israel is completely apartheid, completely segregates two people from one another based on their ethnicity. They've arbitrarily called the Jewish, the Holy Land, the Israeli state, the Holy Land, even though they recognize it's extremely holy to many different denominations, and then started giving special rights and special rules for this denomination, this Jewish denomination, and then they started slowly reducing the rights and basically declaring these other ethnicities and civilians as second and third class citizens. Even if you're an Arab, an Israeli citizen Arab, you still live as a second class citizen in Israel. You don't get the same rights, you don't get all the permits, and you don't even, as a Jerusalemite, for example, you're not even allowed to participate in your own elections, your national elections. And I'm sure a lot of them boycotted. The ICJ today's hearing a case on is Israel a genocidal force, and brought by South Africa, the only modern example of apartheid the most recent modern example of apartheid that we can find. And I doubt that that's actually a coincidence. I believe South Africa is the country that recognizes apartheid the most. In their allegations, they actually bring many points and prove that there's discriminatory, institutionalized, systemic racism and different rules that apply based on your zoning and based on your identification. And it's only discriminatory when you realize that to become the top number one designation, the number one Israeli designation, is all you had to do was become a Jew. You could have been, I don't know, a nude artist, a nude model, but you're a Jewish nude model that lives in New York City and you love the Jews. Now you're an Israeli citizen. You have more rights than the Palestinian that lived in the land for over 200 years. Tell me which country can allow this and call this constitutional and justice? Um, Israeli is illegally occupying the Gaza and the West Bank, also the Julan Heights, and is continuously creating more and more operations, militarily, offensively speaking. When we talk about the security of Israel, how can you ask for security of Israel if it's literally fighting 3 or 4 countries all at the same time from every single front? And it's a military occupation, and there's no actual police force um, from the actual country it's fighting. Hamas has no police authority. They have no actual authority. Their only fighters are on the ground, running around, and look how scared Israel is from these fighters. They had to kill 30,000 civilians instead of fight them special ops one-on-one. I mean, that's very, very horrific. So no legal UN or international body can actually justify. And I'm really surprised that Isaac tried to do this, tried to say that the occupier can defend themselves. I want to see where does the UN recognize that the illegal occupier has the right to defend themselves and kill 30,000 civilians in their pursuit of that right for the name to security. I just want to remind all of you guys, this is how they're going to try to change the West. They're always going to bring emergency acts to completely do over with your old laws and allow you to be acceptable of all this discrimination. For example, during COVID, they brought in this new set of laws where if you didn't get this kind of arbitrary medicine, that's supposed to help you, then you lose your job. You're not allowed out in public, and plus a plethora of other rules. They're going to use these emergency to try to control you. Just like Isaac said, oh, it's for the security of our nation, so we have this emergency, so we had to kill 40,000 people. It's for the security of our nation. There's no bad intent. There's no malicious intent. We just had to save our own lives. And this is consistent with the Israeli Supreme Court. That's exactly what they do. They do over with the human rights the second they believe they have justification for their own survival. How can you trust any nation that the moment it has a little bit of a hiccup, it just demolishes every single building in front of it, and it's in the name of its sovereignty and long life. And a couple more points, guys. Bombings have to be proportional. Like I said earlier, special ops went in. My argument, yeah, sure, I can't give you an evidence right now because I didn't read into this case, the brand new case, but I looked at the evidence Isaac brought. International human rights proportionality laws do not justify murdering civilians, especially knowing that they are there. Actually, clearly distinguishes that you have to make sure you can distinguish between a civilian and a terrorist, and you can't just bombard them. And if you do, try to your best to reduce that casualty as much as possible. And which is why I argue, based on that proportionality law, that's why they had to send in the special ops, knowing that there was terrorists. I even gave it to him, there's terrorists in the hospital, let's designate a military objective. They still didn't bombard it. This is another reason why there's intent in there. All the other bombardments, because they believe that they can justify all the other bombardments. They just couldn't justify this one. There was too many people. I heard the numbers was 10,000 civilians, so they had to bring in the special ops. But I promise you, if they could, they would have bombarded the place and they wouldn't have cared. Final point here, guys. Israel killing babies, then condemn. Then why don't, if you really believe I think the killing of babies from one side is justified but the other is not. I never once made that claim. I never once said that Hamas was justified in killing babies. I said that Hamas was justified in killing settlers because they believe that those are the enemy as well. They believe that settler colonialism is their enemy. They cannot differentiate between an IDF soldier and a settler, especially when they're holding the same AR-15. So that's my argument there. It's not that they were actually after babies, but that's actually what Israel does. Israel knows that there's babies inside the building. Instead of sending special ops so they can calm down the situation, instead of sending some kind of, I don't know, relief, some kind of aid, I don't know what kind of package. I'm not the military dictator here. I'm not the genius. It's the IDF soldier. Instead of doing that, what they do is they just bomb the whole apartment building. According to Isaac, they're completely justified. There's no malicious intent at all in that bombardment. This was completely cool because it became a military objective the second we found a terrorist in there. So finally, all of these points I believe are the intent. There, you do not need to get a declaration. You don't need an independent declaration. Just like Balfour did not have to say we have to kick the Palestinian people out so we can make Israel Israel. The same thing. You don't have to. You can still derive intent from the actions, from the outcome of what's happening. That's what my argument is. If you as a deductive reasoning individual can derive logic and understanding from the outcome, then you can derive the intent from this outcome as well, that they were intending to kill and displace all the Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank soon.